Are we live?
You good to go?
All right. Well, thank you sorry to all those online. That was a 45-minute delay. We had some technical challenges. So I will resume the meeting at this time. We did call it to order, and then we thought it would be back online quickly, but we took a recess, and we are now restarting the meeting. So I was at the land acknowledgement, and in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge the town of Edson is located on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Nikawak, Sotu, Siksika, Piikani, Kenai, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and the Otapisimishiwak Métis Nations. We honor the knowledge of this land, the elders and youth which gather here, and our ancestors who have gathered here for centuries. All right. Next, I need a motion for adoption of the agenda. Councillor Chenard.
I'll move we adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Any additions or deletions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Next, if I get a motion, please, for the adoption of the minutes from the December 10th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. Councillor Moore.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Is there any errors, omissions, deletions, or corrections to such minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is carried. We have no presentations. Bylaws. First up, we have a presentation by Adrienne Tate, our returning officer, about our draft election sign bylaw. You'll need to key up your mic.
I believe I need to share my screen first. Yes, Jen? Okay. Your screen sharing is closed. Good evening, committee members. I will try to get through this quickly. During the presentation of the elections bylaw, the committee requested administration establish parameters around election signage. Administration has since drafted an election sign bylaw designed to be enforceable not only for the 2025 municipal election, but for federal and provincial elections as well. To that end, this bylaw aligns and ensures compliance with a number of higher levels of legislation, including the Canada Elections Act, the Elections Act, the Local Authorities Elections Act, Municipal Government Act, Traffic Safety Act, and Land Use Bylaw. Additionally, administration has reviewed the election sign bylaw from several other municipalities, including Spruce Grove, Fort Saskatchewan, Wetaskiwin, Yellowhead County, Whitecourt, Canmore, and more. The benefits of establishing a standalone bylaw is that it aims to balance a candidate's right to campaign and freedom of expression with pedestrian and traffic safety as well as community standards. This bylaw also provides a framework for enforcement and helps to define permitted and prohibited areas. The election signs are exempt from permitting under our land use bylaw. The current land use bylaw states that election sign placements are allowed for 30 days or other such time as regulated under provincial and federal legislation, and that has been key with this bylaw. The proposed bylaw expands this period from nomination day to 3 days following the election for municipal elections. Provincial and federal elections, signs may be installed from the election writ day and must be removed within 3 days after the closing of polls on election day. in accordance with the Canada Elections Act and the Elections Act, so that would be 60 and 45 days respectively. Design and size. A lot of this was following best practices. So the residential freestanding signs that you'd see there, this administration is recommending the standard election sign size. This is similar to what you would see with real estate signs and the election signs that we normally see, the corrugated plastic signs that we would see. In compliance with the land use bylaw, a larger sign may be placed on a private fence, but should not exceed the size of the fence and therefore would max out at 6 feet or 2 meters. A non-residential freestanding sign would have a maximum height of 2.43 meters or 8 feet as per the land use bylaw. And you can always go on a private building. Most of these restrictions are actually based on the Traffic Safety Act. Alberta Transportation has very clear guidelines as to what is permitted for election signs, as well as the land use bylaw and best practices. Some of these include election signs cannot mimic the appearance of a ballot. They must be placed in a manner or they cannot be placed, in a manner that obstructs election signs from other candidates. They cannot be placed or erected in a manner that poses a danger to person or property, be located on a traffic control device or on any highway structure or located on the highway, including paved shoulders, traffic circles, or islands. This is directly from the Traffic Safety Act and Alberta Transportation. So signs must be placed a minimum of 2 meters setback from the highway's edge. The definition of highway within this bylaw actually comes from the Traffic Safety Act and therefore includes sidewalks, the curbing, and boulevards. This would impact 2nd and 4th Avenue, the Highway 16 corridor. Edson's unique position along Highway 16 requires quite a lot of compliance with the Alberta Transportation regulations. Signs must further not obstruct sightlines or interfere with traffic control devices. They cannot be placed within 50 meters of intersections. And as I mentioned before, cannot be included in medians, traffic circles, or traffic islands, which we do have along that corridor. Placement on town-owned lands. So election signs are prohibited in school and playground zones, but policies and bylaws vary across the various municipalities in Alberta. Some, like Yellowhead County, Whitecourt, and Canmore, prohibit signs on public property full stop. Others, such as Fort Saskatchewan and Spruce Grove, allow them in specific areas, such as medians, but prohibit them in parks, playgrounds, on town-owned facilities, or any land parcel on which a town-owned facility is located. And then you have municipalities like Okotoks who designate sign corrals. They're very limited, very specific areas where signs might be permitted on municipal lands. These variations can create a lot of challenges, both for the candidates and for enforcement, to understand where these locations are. So for ease of enforcement, clarity for candidates, and for the town to remain neutral in all elections, municipal, provincial, and federal, administration is recommending that election signs be prohibited on municipal and public lands. The orange in that map was what would be marked as municipal lands. For enforcement, candidates are responsible for damages, losses, or expenses caused by improper installation, maintenance, or removal of election signs. Town staff would be able to remove signs that interfere with municipal operations, violate the placement regulations, or pose a safety hazard. Those signs would then be removed and stored at the Public Works Yard for up to 10 days. Unclaimed signs would then be disposed of. The vast majority of municipalities impose fines for violations of their election sign bylaw. I could only find one other who did not, and they don't have a bylaw, they have a policy. Should the committee so choose, you might consider adopting a fine structure for violations of the election sign bylaw. Fines across the province range and vary from $75 to over $1,000 per offense. Should you choose to impose a fine structure, a schedule would be attached to the bylaw and the fees and charges bylaw would need to be recommended. Please note section 6.3 of the bylaw, which deals with defacing election signs, actually falls under the criminal code as well as Canada Elections Act. That type of violation is an indictable offense and carries a penalty of up to $10,000 and 1 year imprisonment. what we would recommend if you chose to do a fine structure is something along this lines where a warning would come first with no fine and then subsequent violations. You could impose 100 or 200 or whatever committee chose. Any feedback received from the committee tonight will be incorporated into the draft election sign bylaw and be brought back for further consideration. Do you have any questions?
Councillor Schnart.
I have two questions, Mr. Chair. Can I ask them both or one come back?
Yeah, go ahead with 2 questions.
Okay, my first one is election signs general regulations on 4.2, where I'm questioning is provincial and federal elections are allowed to be on private and public land. Now, do we have the right, because we're setting the rules, because it says for municipal elections, we could only use private land. So I'm questioning the fact, because where we brought up 2nd and 4th Avenue, who owns the property on 2nd and 4th Avenue? Would that be determined, because that's where commonly signs are, but we're not allowed to use town land?
So 2nd and 4th Avenue falls under Alberta Transportation.
Okay, so, well, Mr. Chair, on follow-up, so an example, I'm gonna use the recycling depot. That is perceived the town owns the property. In the past, all candidates would put their signs up by the recycling depot, not obstructing any views. But this bylaw says I can't put it on public land. So I'm questioning on federal and provincial elections we're allowed. How come we can't on a municipal election?
You wouldn't be allowed on federal or provincial either. It would be.
Nope, let's see here.
They would have to adhere to our bylaw.
But on section 4.2, it says federal and provincial elections are permitted on public and private land. Municipal elections are only private land. So 4.1 and 4.2 is what I'm questioning.
So I would suggest that if you don't want them on public lands, then we would amend that.
I do want them
And
on
would
public
just put
land.
it on private property. That particular section was related to the time frame during which you could
Okay, if
put
I
up your.
do a follow-up, so since we're setting the rules, then I'm saying that campaign signs should be allowed on publicly owned land. I mean, there's certain, and I get it, we've restricted in the past, don't put them on Centennial Park, but I'm saying, and I use the recycling depot as a real good example, everyone puts their signs up there, that is public land. So, I want to be able to put them on public land, so boulevards, et cetera, following all the safety traffic laws is the one I'm questioning. So if we're setting the rules, I don't like that one.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm allowed to ask the second one?
No, you've already had 2.
Okay.
You can wait and say somebody else has a question. Anybody else have any questions? Well, if you queue up, I guess I'll let you go again.
Okay, my next one is sign sizes. 5.2, according to what I'm reading here, 5.2, a minimum sign face can be 6.4 square feet, and I believe a 4x8 sign, if we're doing the math, so when it says they can be 3 feet high, a standard sign, core plastic, is 4x8. So either a 4x4 sign or 4x8, unless I'm reading this wrong, it says 3 feet. So that means a 4x8 sign, I have to cut off a foot and throw it away. And so if I'm reading this right, it says I can put up a 3x5 sign. I'm questioning on a federal or provincial election, they have 4x8 signs. For a municipal election, we should be able to have 4x8 signs.
So that would be the maximum height of the sign. So that would be
Maximum.
when you stick it on the wire frames, for example, that would be the maximum height of the sign.
Then if I'm interpreting 5.2A, maximum sign face area. So,
Is 6.45. So whatever your dimensions would be, that would be.
okay, who's good at math? A 4x8 sheet is?
So it could be 3x2. It could be those. It's yeah.
Well, no, what I'm questioning, when I calculate out right, unless someone can correct me if I'm wrong, a 4x8 sheet is more than 6.4 feet. So I'm saying when you go purchase the signs, they standardly come in 4x8 sheets. So I'm buying a 4x8 and I'm cutting it 3x5 and I'm throwing away pieces. So in a federal and provincial election, they're allowed 4x8 signs. I've seen them, I put them up, so I'm thinking in our municipal election, other make the minimum 4x4 or 4x8, because you buy sheets in 4x8. So if it's 4x4, it's 4x4 it is. Because right now, 3x5, I'd have to cut pieces off.
Maybe explain, if you could, what the maximum assigned face area determines, because maybe that's what Councillor Schnart. Like, what is the maximum, like, explain that? Because I think it's 5.2, it says have a maximum assigned face area of 0.6 meters squared or 6.45 feet squared.
So that would be, and it's not per, like that's per, so you'd be allowed that per side, but that would be like one side of the actual sign itself. That doesn't include like the stand or the. So it would align with our A-frame and our temporary signs, is what that aligns with.
Then is it,
We can change we can.
temporary signs are 4x8 and 5x10 signs. And they're a lot more than 6.45 square feet.
Okay, we can change those.
No, just because 6.45, like a 4x8 is 32 square feet.
And our sign bylaw has up to 35, like for the larger signs, has up to 35.
Okay, all right, we'll move on and then maybe we'll come back to that. Councillor Chachka has a question.
Through the chair to Ms. Tate, I'm okay with a 3x2 sign. I think that's plenty enough for people to see who people are in an election. I think that, you know, there's plenty of opportunities on the boulevard to put signs for within our town limits, for provincial, federal, and municipal. A 3x2 sign, I think, is plenty big enough for people to know who's running and you know, to look up more information about them. I think that's probably fine. If the federal and provincial election campaigns want to put bigger signs up, you know, outside of our municipality, that's their prerogative. Within our municipality, on boulevards, I don't think we need to have big signs like that. I think there's plenty of opportunity for people to see who's running the way it's laid out here. I really like that you have clearly identified in the map those public properties that are prohibited to have signage, so it's not mistaken. And there's still lots of opportunities on the highway there, I think, to put signs. So I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Mayor Zahara?
I think Councillor Bevan was ahead of me, but I'll just quickly say I'm okay with the not having them on public places. There's plenty of opportunities in private properties and other locations to put up signage. Election signs are as annoying as hell. So I think there's plenty of opportunities to do that, and I agree with the regulations on the sign size.
Councillor Bevan?
Yeah, just a comment and a question is that last election, we were told to remove our signs from the recycle depot that we had put on down there, so I have no problem in that. But Griffiths Park on the corner of 6th Avenue and I believe it's 54th Street, where everybody put their signs there, is that a place now where we cannot put them, seeing that we have our town office down there too?
That not only falls under town office, it is also a playground zone and a park. So there would not be signs allowed at that particular location.
Okay, because before we used to be able to put them there, so now this year we can't put them there, the way I understand it then.
So whose rule is it our bylaw saying no, not allowed in playground zones, or is it a provincial or federal?
So that one's provincial. The parks would be ours, your committee's determination whether you wanted to, because municipality owns the parklet.
Anybody else have any comments? Councillor Chenard?
Just to follow up, because I am going by the map, but a bylaw says town-owned property. So we would need to get a clarification, is a boulevard the town-owned or not owned? Because I get it, I seen the map on the parks, I'm all in favor of that. But I'm still questioning like the boulevards, because people do put signs up. And, you know, there's one intersection in town, I know that's Boulevard, up on 63rd Street by Beaupre's. Favorite spot, every person campaigning puts their signs there, but we have to be careful how we write the bylaw. If we call that town-owned land, that's a piece of land, we're all breaking the rules. So I would rather specifically not have the phrase in town-owned properly, and I get the list, I've seen it, we can abide by that, but we have to be careful when we say town-owned land, because town-owned land is a boulevard, and that's the one that I'm questioning, that I would like us to not have restrictions on, as well as the size of signs, but that'll be up to everyone to decide.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Taylor?
Through the chair, thanks for putting this together there, Ms. Tate. I do believe that the sign size can go up. I think that, I hear what Mayor Zahara said, that election signs can be annoying, but in an election, this is the way a candidate can get their message out, right? And we have to allow that to happen in order for our democracy to thrive. And doesn't mean that every private property needs a 4x8 sign or anything, but we allow them a little bit of leeway, right? And right now we're looking at about a 3x2 sign, but not all signs can be constructed that way and still be appropriate. They can be 4x4 and still be appropriate on someone's lawn. And depending upon the length of a candidate's name can dictate the size of a sign. Some people have hyphenated names, and all of a sudden, if you dictate a 3x2 sign, it'll be a really tiny little name. And we want to help that person maximize their exposure, that last name on the ballot. So I think the sign size can come up, right? In terms of the locations, I succumb to the fact that most of those areas should not be areas where we place signs. As long as certainly we have the highway area, because you do want that leeway of hitting those high traffic areas where people will see them, right? Some people have private property, but some candidates, all their friends live in cul-de-sacs, and you need to have that exposure in other areas, right? And having that leeway to go in other areas, I think, is important. I have been looking and dissecting the map about where everyone could be placed. I guess schools, we can't do it, albeit, I've been watching the elections, and whether it's been running or campaigning for people, we've put signs in all of these areas in previous elections. And everybody at this table has done that, and previous council members have done that. But as long as we're all on the same level playing field, I say okay. I believe we all had our signs in traffic circles too. Yep. It's a great spot for a sign. It's totally seen as you go around, right? But as long as we have second and fourth, and I'm trying to look on this map, is there any other public areas where someone could put a sign where it's not going to cause a problem? Is there anywhere else, Ms. Tate, that is a public area where people, again, not a private area, where people can put a sign and it's on a public area? Yes, you're going to have, if 10 people are running, probably 10 signs next to each other, but that's okay too. For 28 days, that's okay. It's a way to get their message out there that's off a little bit of private property.
And that would be up to committee's direction. We did include places like the hospital and RCMP station and those kind of places, right? Which are public-owned lands.
I'm going to take the liberty of the chair to throw my 2 cents in to follow Councillor Taylor. I'm a little challenged. I'm challenged by the school one. Let's remove democracy away from our schools. That's, to me, makes no sense. Saying we can't put signs on public lands is, again, it's not showing favoritism. That's allowing people the fair right to public land to place a political sign, to take part in a process that is vitally important to having good governance and in our whole country, for that matter. I'm challenging some of these. 41st Street, boulevards in there. Why would we not be allowed to put a sign there? Traffic circle in the middle of town. Why would we not be allowed to put a sign in there? Playground zones, I guess we're governed by a different body, so that I guess we're stifled there. But, you know, some town sites I think make sense. Like, you know, Centennial Park was always an unwritten rule, don't put your signs in Centennial Park. But on the other sides of it was always a good place for signs. I think you keep it fair when you allow people to put signs. I wouldn't allow signs around the town office per se, but maybe throughout the community. The leisure center is a high traffic area. If you want to get seen, you put your signs by the boulevard or the entrance. You're not allowed to put them inside. That's always been a rule. So we start to lock down where we can put signs. And now if you're trying to take part in the democratic process, and let's say you don't have or don't know everybody in the community and don't have 1,000 lawns to put them on, where do you put your signs? That's not really fair in a political process. You can run for office, but you're not allowed to put your signs on public land. Absolutely not. And to me, that's wrong. And you guys can all argue me all you want, but here's the thing. I'm born and raised inside. A lot of people, probably a few lawns I can put them on. You know what? There's a lot of great places in the community to put signs, and we're taking a lot of those away, and I think that takes away from our process. I'll speak to the sign size. I don't think we should have a limit on size. If someone wants a 4x8 sign, let them pay for a 4x8 sign. I don't have any. I think they're expensive, and then they're hard to place. But some people may want a 4x4 sign. They become very hard to place, so that's up to them if they want to spend the money. But if we're going to create a bylaw on signs, then a lot of your political parties in our country most people go by a 4x8 or a 4x4, whatever is divisible by a 4x8 sheet of Pluriplast. So anything bigger than that, I don't think is justifiable. So I would say whatever the meters are, but 32 square feet or smaller would be more than suffice. And trust me, a 4x8 sign is massive. You need a large fence or a large spot for it. Or a lot of hardware so it doesn't blow over. So I don't think we should have the sign should be so restrictive. Because to me, again, we're now telling people who may be a part of a group that has financial backing and want to spend more on signs, then that's their prerogative. So I don't know. That's my opinion on it. I'm talking too much, so I'll pass it on to Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair, and sort of spinning off what Deputy Mayor Persishny was saying, I think perhaps he's right in terms of I think there's probably one too many public properties that are on this map that we could adjust. I think we can come up on the sign size. I said that earlier. In terms of what comes off, I guess we're stuck on the playground zones, which I guess includes the school zones. That does include the school. Don't have school zones anymore. No, but you mentioned about schools. With all of them are playground zones now, so we're stuck in that world, right? So, but there are other areas that I think that we can hit along some main drags. I think I said 40th Street, right around there, right around entrances to like main, like I see to Hillendale, like that should be that. Again, we've all placed signs there. Everybody at this table did. And I think opening that up and allowing future candidates to do that is important to get your name out there.
Councillor Chenard?
I'm agreeing with the other two across the table, exactly right. Where, I'm saying public land, but this list that's in front of us is way too vast. We could simply do Centennial Park, town office, stuff like that, because it is only for 28 days, and it's my one chance that I can let the mayor know that, yes, my sign is annoying, but I mean, his comment is true. But I mean, what we're hearing in this room, you're not well known, you want your name out there. I'm going to agree with the deputy mayor that it's your opportunity to get your name out there, because you may not be able to. And like you said, if everyone lives in a cul-de-sac, sign's not there. So I would like to revamp this list. I'd say 2/3 of them should go. A lot of it's been common sense. I don't even know why we're putting this here. We've ran many elections. We've all had a sense we knew right and wrong without saying you can't do it. Centennial Park Town Office, it was common. So we need to get rid of 2/3 of this and then put some kind of regulations in.
CEO Bever, do you need to be before the mayor, or can I let the mayor go first? Okay, I wasn't sure if there was a critical. Mayor Zahara?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I think you brought up a good point. It needs to be fair for all. needs to be fair for every single candidate running, and I can tell you that enforcement in previous elections hasn't been fair. Or some people have been asked to remove signs, other people have not. So I think this is where clarity in a bylaw is really, really important. Centennial Park is like, no, absolutely not. If the committee and council want signs in other public places, and so be it. Whatever we do, we just need to have clarity as to where signs are permitted and make sure that enforcement is fair. As in the previous election, there were candidates having signs on town-owned fences, on town-owned buildings, which is completely not fair. And so I think that's the main thing in this bylaw is we need to make sure that everybody's treated with the same enforcement and the same rules, and that all candidates have clarity as to where those assigned bylaws are. In past elections, there's always that unwritten rule, but if you're not in the inner circle, you don't know that unwritten rule. Whatever the committee decides, that's fine, but I just want to make sure that whatever language or whatever places that we are restricting, that we're very clear as to where those locations are.
Thank you, Mayor Zahara. CEO Beveridge?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, I just wanted to just bring to light, this derived from a conversation during the election bylaw. And as Mayor Zahara just spoke to, allowing for there to be clear and transparent rules for everyone is so important in this process. When we are faced with no rules, and I've heard a lot of discussion about last election, and we could do anything we wanted. That does cause a big issue for the dealing with the signs. That time period is a really big challenge for candidates, not only, and as well enforcement trying to deal with that. So from my perspective, from what we're hearing tonight, I'm going to recommend that we take this back and we bring this back to another committee to have another further discussion. But we hear generally, I believe we understand where we need to take this back and take another look at this. And we'd be happy to bring for more feedback with this group.
Thank you, CEO Beveridge. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, through the mayor, to council and everyone. Transparency, I agree with. We need things to be fair. So much so that basically anytime anyone's running, whether it's provincially, federally, municipally, that they get a copy of this bylaw when it's announced. We have a federal election probably looming sometime in the spring, and if this bylaw is ready before then, the candidates, whoever they are, will all be sent a copy of this, so they're very well aware. In terms of fines, and we did there was a question earlier on fines. I think first and foremost, enforcement should be asked to work with the candidate. Hey, you put a sign. I think we all kind of got calls on the last election. Can you go move your sign? Yes, sorry, we screwed up. We'll get that down. We'll get that taken care of. However, if it becomes a persistent issue, I think offering some sort of fine is not a bad idea. Again, if there's like persistent issues and stuff like that, we do need to have a bylaw with teeth, right? I remember, I think it was after the federal election, which was roughly after the last municipal election, there were, I won't say the political party, they're not really a political party, but it doesn't matter. They had lots of signs still around town that they never came to pick up. And I believe at the end of the day, it was our guys who eventually had to go pick them up. No, I'm sorry, you got to pick up your signs. And they were on public land. At that point, we can enforce fines, even if that candidate doesn't even live here. And that's all the more reason maybe enforce those things. So I don't know what a fine can be compared in terms of other bylaws. I wouldn't say it would be $1,000, but $100, $150 is not an uncommon thing in this day and age to have that and have that teeth.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Mr. Kitlitz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this is going to be helpful or not, but I guess what I might suggest is rather than a graphic that shows where they're prohibited, it sounds like town boulevards might be the sweet spot, and maybe what we consider is a map that shows some of those key intersections or locations on a boulevard where you could, rather than saying where you can't go, you can only go in these areas. My fear is when you say you try to start moving things where you're prohibited, you might miss something. and then there's a conflict. So just a suggestion, maybe there's some key areas on boulevards where it's, I think you called them, Ms. Tate called them corrals, that other bylaws called them. I'm not sure what a corral is, but it might just be
It's all those squirrel
an
signs.
area in strategic locations where they are permitted. So just a thought that might be helpful.
Thanks, Mr. Kitt. Ms. Tate? Oh, you've been live the whole time.
If I may, Mr. Chair, they are assigned corrals, and Okotoks is an example of where they are very specific, they're very limited, but they are in key areas where the municipalities have allowed them on town lands. So that is one of the options. The other, for council's consideration that I had mentioned was, if you look at somewhere like Fort Saskatchewan or Spruce Grove, they are very specific on where they allow them, and it's not on any parcel where there's a town-owned facility, but parcels where there is not a facility, they do allow them. So that might be something committee would want to consider as well.
Okay. All right. Do you have enough to go back with? And
I think so.
okay, I don't see any other that he queued up. So, in the interest of some time tonight, maybe we'll move on.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Tate. All right. Next up is presentation by Tanya Byers, Community Development Manager, on our community grant program and policy development. Welcome, Ms. Byers. Councillor Bevan, if I don't see you, it's not a habit to look up to see if you want to queue in. So just queue up your mic and go or something so that I know you want to ask a question.
No problem.
Welcome. If you queue up your mic, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for having me, and good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council. I'm going to try to make this as quick and thorough as possible, if that's if that's a possibility. I'm happy to consult with you all about the future of the Community Grants Program. Of course, not going to work for me. There we go. So currently the town doesn't have a policy in place governing community grants. So the challenge with this current process is that there's inconsistencies. It's a bit of an ad hoc process with grant programs. The grant streams have limitations with a narrow focus and limited flexibility. And with the funding increases that were put into the budget this year, bringing it to $55,000 overall, we believe that a greater degree of transparency and accountability is desirable. So just to give you a quick background, we have $15,000 in the annual budget this year for the Seniors and Disability Operating Assistance Transportation Grant. That is quite a mouthful. We also have $10,000 for the Community Development Micro Grants, and then there was the addition of $30,000 for the overall Enhanced Community Grant Program. And so our objective is to enhance the program by consolidating all the current grant streams and clarifying the process to make it easier for applicants and also for administration. And goals of this, the policy and a new framework would include, clarifying and simplifying the process for applicants, more efficiency, streamline the administration, allocation flexibility, equity and funding distribution, enhanced impact through focused funding streams, improved tracking and accountability, and of course, increasing public trust and engagement. And with the consultation process, of course, this is step one, bringing it to yourselves to get your feedback. And the next step would be going to community stakeholders and all our interagency groups and such, and putting it out to residents as well. And then we would come back to you with what we heard report, and also have a proposed policy ready for deliberation. So in the next handful of slides, you're going to see some options, and I know this is gonna take a little time, but I would like feedback for any of these that have kind of the red box around them. So at the moment, you know, the question is, do we want to create a policy? In my opinion, that it's probably a fairly, you know, simple answer. We're wanting to create that policy that's going to encompass an enhanced program. Right now, we don't have things in place, and you know, with kind of 10, 15,000, it really wasn't that big a deal. Like administration could manage it fairly easily. But with the larger sum of money, 55,000, we think it's pretty important that we get that framework around it. So that's our recommendation, but I'm going to pause at this moment just to kind of get your feedback. Make sure we're on the right track.
Councillor Chenard?
Through the chair to Ms. Byers. What would you want this policy to look by? So I'm understanding a policy, but give me an example of what you'd want the policy to look like. And if you need one, then yes, I'd be in favor of it, but I need to know what you're looking for.
Okay. So through the chair to Councillor Chouinard, in the slides that are coming forward, there's going to be quite a bit more detail, I guess, on the feedback that we're looking for. So if you don't mind, we'll just wait, and if we don't answer your questions by the end, then we'll come back to it.
Councillor Taylor?
Through the chair to Ms. Byers, yes, having a policy is a good idea for the amount of money that we have, for fairness, for transparency, and then looking at, you know, subsequent decisions that could happen is creating those procedures, whether it is creating a rubric and how you grade those applications to make it as objective as possible, and even offering, and we say this in Teaching World exemplars, this is what a good application looks like, and here's one that maybe doesn't meet the criteria that we're looking for. So it gives those people applying for grants that they understand what we're looking for, you know, what to include, what not to include, and those types of things. So I think this is a good idea, and it takes any level of bias out of the equation as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Did you get enough?
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then we will move on. Thank you. So the next thing that we want to discuss is the grant streams. So we want to create clear funding priorities. We want to have a targeted impact so that we're, you know, meeting some of the challenges that we know are pressing in our community, and also looking at equitable distribution so that we don't have, you know, one or two organizations that are fairly strong, or maybe better established, that they're monopolizing the funding. So we're just, you know, looking at creating several different grant streams to kind of spread things around a bit that also hit council's priorities. And I'm not going to read through all these slides because it'll take us too much time, but the first one centers around arts, culture, and heritage. And so looking to support programs and events that celebrate and preserve local arts, culture, heritage, fostering community engagement, and enriching the cultural landscape. The next grant stream is sports, personal growth, and recreation. And so programs and events which encourage active participation in sports or activities which promote community health, personal growth, and social cohesion. And I'm just going to point out the reason that we've put the word personal growth in there is because we wanted to find a way to talk about, you know, the Girl Guides, or, you know, groups like that might not fit under, you know, sports or recreation or culture. So we just kind of group that into personal growth just to, I guess, broaden the scope there. And environmental sustainability. So these are initiatives aimed at environmental stewardship, resource conservation, and sustainable practices within the community. And accessibility and inclusion, again, one of council's priorities. So projects that create inclusive opportunities for individuals with disabilities to engage in community life. I also want to point out here that this is where we've placed the transportation part of the grant when we're trying to combine them, just so that the transportation piece would sort of fit under that grant stream. So with the grant stream considerations that I have put forward, again, the one in the red box is the consolidated application stream that administration is recommending. But I will pause for a little feedback. Is there something we're missing? You know, this research was done with a lot of different municipalities. There doesn't seem to be a right or a wrong or even consistency across communities. These were just the ones that I came up with to, I guess, try to reflect council's priorities and also the needs in our community, but certainly open to expanding, changing, what have you.
Mayor Zahara?
Thank you, Ms. Byers, and I do like the application streams you have outlined there. You have the question there on the bottom. Should operational grants such as the Historical Society, Moving Edson, be considered under a separate policy or leave it as is and addressed as they arise? I think those larger funding agreements that we have with those organizations should be sufficient, and that these grant streams should be open to other organizations that are not already receiving funds or significant funds from the town of Edson. It ensures that many organizations benefit, and that not just a certain few organizations are getting those dollars.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Zahara. I'd concur with that too, that the Moving Edson ESTS and the museum should be separate from all of it. Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, continue.
Okay. So the next thing is the grant stream ineligibility. So the way that things are right now, if you have deficit funding you're looking for money for, or capital projects, fundraisers, faith-based programs, grants and scholarships specifically for individuals, agencies that have large unrestricted reserves, school sports teams, and previously initiated projects and programs, they were not eligible previously, or currently they're not eligible. There's two different options that we're recommending, and we're recommending option 3, but 2 to consider. Allowing schools hosting events to be open to the community, that they would be allowed to apply, and also existing projects and programs or events. So just for an example, if you host a rodeo in Edson every year, you currently aren't eligible because it's a reoccurring event, because the original community microgrants were set up to try to encourage new and different and that sort of thing. But we're also recognizing that it's really important because the cost of running events and such has gone through the roof, insurance requirements, all those sorts of things. And we think it's probably quite important that we support the local organizations that are contributing every day. So, I guess that's why we're recommending that we enhance that eligibility. And the other option that's in option 3 is adding fundraiser events. Now, what I find is that typically nonprofit organizations, they run an event, and although it's a good time for the community and it brings people together and there's so many wonderful outcomes to it, there's often a fundraising component as well, because they need to raise funds to stay vibrant. And so I would recommend that we also add fundraiser events or events that have a fundraising component to the list as well, to make them eligible. So is there any feedback on option 3?
Anybody? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, I agree with option 3. So long as when looking at schools, it goes beyond the government funding for the school. Like, for example, textbooks are something that is supplied by government funding to the school. So it has to go beyond that. If, say, sports teams wanted to host a tournament that goes beyond the funding of what a school would do, then that's okay to get grants from us. If it's something that the provincial government or school division needs to fund, then that's on them to fund, right? And I just see the other consideration. Should annual events be eligible? Why not? Like, if a person wants to reapply every year, that's fine. Whether or not they get the grant is another question, because that can be put into consideration as well, that yes, you may apply, but we can also want to spread it around and go to another direction, right? So, and those are my comments there.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Only thing I have a question on, and it maybe follows on Councillor Taylor's, but on the schools hosting events open to the community, is there any thought given to, or to the province? Like sometimes, and maybe I'm out of touch on this, but if our local school wanted to host a provincials and it's going to bring a pile of teams from all over the province, is this not an area where we could help? Because to me, that's a bit of economics, right? Anytime you have a big tournament for a provincial one, you're bringing all these people to your community, and they're going to spend money in your community, support your businesses. So, is there a way of tying like a provincial to it? Like open to the community is great. I support that, but is there a way too, if they wanted to host a big, and some sports could even be, if we had the facilities or something, we could have a nationals or a provincials or something along those lines. I'm not sure if it's possible or not.
Certainly to Deputy Mayor position, we, when I flew through one of the slides back where it actually talked about sport hosting and that sort of thing, we actually addressed that as well, where, and we'll also talk about like funding thresholds, because I agree with you, like even, when a hockey tournament comes to town, which is very, every weekend in the winter for Edson, the same as a basketball or volleyball tournament, a drama production. So when we say open to the community, I mean that the community can come and enjoy it. They can come watch. But I also am wondering, like, do we want to set those thresholds where if it is a provincial, huge expectations come when you try to host a provincial hockey tournament or anything of that level. And I agree with you that I think it needs to be considered, I guess just given the scale of the event that's going to be brought here. So that's also something that I agree we can talk about, is those thresholds.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Zahara?
Thank you. Great conversation on this piece. I think it's important to support those events that are bringing people to our community, whether it's regional, provincial. I look at minor ball when they hosted provincials last year. Was that last year, 2 years ago? A lot of work has to go into making that happen in a short amount of time. There's not a lot of opportunities necessarily to generate revenue, but it is a huge benefit for our restaurants, for hotels, for gas stations, and to showcase what Edson has to offer. So I certainly would like to see we are allowing these sorts of things that if, preference would be given to those things that might be generating economic activity within the community, or highlighting areas that are outlined in our strategic plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Zahara. Councillor Taylor.
Through the chair, further to Deputy Mayor Posishny's point, hosting provincials or nationals, many local people attend those events as it is, right? In fact, if you go in the stands, and our school, like Holy Redeemer, has hosted provincials once upon a time, and most of the people in the stands are local people at that event. So that's still building your community. It's still cheering on the local team. And of course, we see hockey tournaments all the time. So same thing. So I'm all in favor of allowing those types of events into this grant process.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Chenard.
Through the chair to Ms. Byers. I'm in favor of hearing anything, but somewhere along the line, we need to figure out a cost figure. So, the reason I'm saying that, an example, we might say, okay, we're hosting hockey and we're going to put $50,000 in, but soccer's unimportant. So I like the policy, I like what we're hearing, but we need to be able to put some kind of a cost figure as well, up to a maximum of for each event. Thanks.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard. Councillor Moore.
Through the chair to Ms. Byers. So what if a group wanted, a group that was thinking of starting something in town, funds for that, would they be allowed under this, any of this criteria?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Moore, I'm not sure I quite understand what you're asking.
Well, basically, if somebody wanted to start a group that would assist people in town of any application, would they be allowed to gain startup funds under this criteria?
Okay. Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Moore, that's something I never thought of, but I really like what you're thinking. And so it does allow like special interest groups to apply for funding. And so, I mean, if that's the route that we go. So I would see that as a special interest group saying, you know, we want to create, you know, families of children with disabilities or, you know, whatever it might be. And I could see that as being a really good possibility. But again, it's up to council, I guess, on where they want to go with that. But I think that's would be a really nice use of funds for sure, as long as it, again, aligns with the community and the priorities. And yeah, thank you for that.
There's nobody else in the queue, so carry on, please.
So now we move on to the grant applicant's eligibility. So not just anybody can apply for grant funding. And so currently the way it is just registered nonprofit groups or special interest groups are able to apply. And what we're, there's two different options here. And the option that administration is recommending is that we allow the nonprofits, special interest groups, schools and educational institutions, individuals with strong project proposals, which you know, I think might also fall in line with what Councillor Moore was mentioning. And the other option to consider is businesses. And the reason that we've added this in is because we've actually had a good handful of businesses that have contacted us to say, you know, can we get funding for, we want to throw a block party or a street party or what have you. And the answer was always no, because it wasn't that they couldn't do it, but we couldn't fund them or provide the block party trailer, because the block party is completely different, and that's for residential and community. It doesn't fit business. So the question is, do we want to allow businesses to, you know, again, depending on the circumstances, but if they're going to put a car show downtown and, you know, bring something in like that for the community, do we want to allow businesses as well to apply?
Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor. Again, I like option 3. I think if businesses wish to partake in this, again, it does have to meet that criteria. It has to be open to everybody. It can't just be they're hosting an event for clients and things like that. It has to be open to everybody. And again, there's an economic spinoff and impact to that, I think, too. Allowing schools and educational institutions, I think we've kind of talked about that, is important. Again, so long as it's separated from the funding that a school would get from the provincial government and school divisions. And individuals with a strong project proposal, I can see that too. Of course, with any grant that we get, there has to be an accountability of that too. Obviously, with nonprofits, it's a part of their process too, that they have to report back in their outcomes and how they spent that money. And I think no matter who gets this grant or these grants, there has to be that accountability to come back. So I'm sure that's coming up or you're speaking about, but there has to be some sort of accountability to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Mayor Zahara.
Yeah, my only comment on option 3 is that those that are applying and their events or their activities need to align with council's strategic plan. I would hate us to be funding something that goes against what our strategic plan says.
Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. Through the chair to the committee and Ms. Byers. My question, so I'm okay with option 3. My question is if one of these groups is going to host an event that's available to the community, how do they let the community know that it's available to attend? Are there any requirements regarding advertising or getting that information out there? I know lots of people use Facebook and lots of people don't, or the algorithm show that you don't actually, it never shows up in your feed or something, right? So how, if we were gonna, you know, maybe provide a micro grant to an individual with a strong personal project proposal, how do we know what the event is? Is there a mechanism that will be identified that these groups have to use so people can actually find out about these events, or they just invite their friends?
And through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Kashka, I think, you know, certainly we have the community events calendar that we encourage everybody to, you know, put a special event on. Obviously to most of these things are probably going to meet the criteria of a special event as well. So they would have to go through that process. And in that process, we of course, recommend that they do the marketing. We don't put it on like our Edson, our program's Facebook page, because we do keep that specifically for town business. But I mean, certainly we could recommend it, but it's not something you can make them do, so to speak. But also when you think about a special interest group, this might be something as, an artist might say, I want to do a mural on this business. And, so it might not be something that community's like invited to or part of per se, but something that's going to make our community better. So, I mean, we can certainly encourage it, but, and I mean, maybe we can speak with our communications team about putting it on our website or something, but we have to be careful, I guess, about, like, we don't own what they're about to do, right?
Thank you. The only thing I would like to, is anybody else have anything before I close with it? The question I have is, I'm going to assume, but I don't want to assume, so I'm going to ask the question. There's a couple things that stick out to me. Special interest groups are, I'm sure we have criteria, and the mayor alluded to following our strategic plan. So I'm sure there's going to be criteria and special interest groups that are not allowed. And then along the strong project proposals, I'm going to guess there's a criteria set aside that determines what's a strong project proposal. Is this a one person making decision if it's a strong project proposal, or is it a team of people that make that? And on the businesses side, I'm not against businesses being able to partake in things. Whatever grant we're given needs to be so that it's going towards the community and not towards like a profit center for like to assist, like, not all businesses have a ton of money, and I understand that. So some businesses say, hey, we'd like to do this, but we don't have the funds to pay for this for the community to do this to go along. I'm going to assume that and I don't want to assume this, so I'm asking the question, that we're going to have a set of criteria that says what you can and can't do if you're eligible business. Because there could be a lot of arguments from people that businesses are their own entity. So that I would just I'd like to know what the kind of criterias are. So when it comes to giving a grant to a business, so like using a community trailer for something is a whole different thing for me. But they're part of our community as well, and our businesses pay quite considerably higher mill rate compared to our residents. So
Thank you. Safe to move on, I think. Okay. So here we go, setting application limits. This is a bit of a tricky one, and there's probably lots of different views on it, but currently the microgrants, 2,000 is the most that they can apply for. And, by keeping the grant smaller, obviously there's a lot more to go around. But we've also found that oftentimes our budget goes underspent just because our criteria was so narrow and the limits was 2,000. So now we're looking at raising the threshold moderately. So grant funding not to exceed 5,000 per application. And this might minimize distribution to a limited group of stakeholders who have capacity to take on larger projects and programs. It also limits our risk, like going up to 5,000 if an event is maybe a bit of a flop or it doesn't, things don't go well. 5,000 it's a tough pill to swallow, but it could be worse, right?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Tanya, just through you to Deputy Mayor. We have lost Councillor Bevan. So according to our meeting procedure bylaws, we just need to call a recess for 5 minutes to allow him to attempt to rejoin.
okay, we call a recess then. Let's pause our presentation.
I apologize for that. Thank you.
All right, so for live, the recess is over. According to our procedures bylaw, we'll reconvene while Councillor Bevan tries to get back online. And two other councillors have stepped out of the room for a brief break, and they will join us as soon as they're done. And we do have quorum, so we're going to continue. So if you could please continue with your presentation.
Okay, so where we left off was looking at setting thresholds or application limits. And so the question is, should there be a limit? If so, what level are we comfortable with? And do we want to set different thresholds for a specific grant streams? So just for an example, a routine, run-of-the-mill hockey tournament or basketball, should those be capped at a certain amount? But if you're having a provincial ball tournament, requiring a lot more, planning and such, do we want to have different thresholds? So that's just one example, but I'm just curious what council is comfortable with.
Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, through the mayor to Ms. Byers, or through the deputy mayor to Ms. Byers. So when you're saying $5,000, are you saying, say the arts and culture section, it'll be up to $5,000 for that arts and culture section? Is that what you're saying? No, it's not what you're saying. Do you want to, per application, they can apply up to $5,000 no matter what?
Correct.
Okay. I think maybe $5,000 might be a.
Can you let Councillor Bevan in, please?
Well, it's okay. I think welcome back, Mr. Councillor Bevan. I think $5,000 might be actually a little on the high side, considering we only have, was it 55,000 total? Suddenly, if someone begins to apply, we get a whole bunch of applications for 5,000, that can make that pot a little smaller. And the idea is, can we spread it around? Can we ensure that all these different groups can get access to it? And we're looking on events and stuff like that. If the only amount of money you're looking at is from the town, I think that you also need to look at other funding sources as well. So I do think 5,000 is a little on the higher side for things.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Chenard?
Through the deputy mayor to Ms. Byers. That gets back to my question about funding, but I wouldn't want us to set up a policy where I tied your hands, because I hear what they're saying, maximum 5,000. Somewhere we need to know discrepancy, because if you're putting on an afternoon child's event and I'm only going to offer balloons and popcorn, I shouldn't be entitled to 5,000. But on the same token, like we said, provincials, hockey tournaments, et cetera, some of them get quite expensive. So, I mean, where Councillor Taylor is saying, I agree, arts and culture, some are more costly than others. So, but your earlier comment, sometimes it doesn't all get spent. So if we all of a sudden cap at 5 and we brought in 10 provincial tournaments of any way, shape, or time, that was the whole purpose of it. So I don't know if the policy would tie your hands or leave you free to somewhat of your discretion up to a maximum of 5,000. I'm okay with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard. Councillor Chachka?
Through the deputy mayor to Ms. Byers, I'm comfortable with the option 2, the way it's worded, not to exceed 5,000 per application, which in my mind means also maybe less than 5,000 as well. So I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you, Councillor Chachka. Mayor Zahara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm comfortable with not exceeding $5,000. We don't know what kind of events or activities might be proposed. And also, I do know that Yahoo County has a policy that they'll only fund events in other municipalities if that host municipality is providing funding. If we don't provide funding, they won't match it. So we don't want to also limit ourselves where we can provide some funding and they can leverage that with either another municipality or the provincial government or some other situation. So I think that, you'll have an application process and a way to review that to see what the pros and the cons are. Also, Ms. Byron, just asking you, how much more on this item do we have? Because I know we have a lot of things on the agenda that we have to get through tonight.
I have
So
4 more pages.
okay, so I would just suggest, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, that council really speeds this up because we've been spending an hour on this particular item already. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Zahara. Before you move on, the only thing I would add is we're allowed $5,000, but is there going to be a provision for the one-offs? So you have something absolutely unique. I don't know if that makes sense or not. You know, like a poor example or a good example would be like Tour Alberta. They get a one-off, you have an opportunity to get something, and now it's a $7,000 grant. And is there provision for those special, unique circumstances? That's, I don't know. It shouldn't be like a standard thing, but if somebody has something really unique, but maybe that's something that comes to council in a different format. So if you could carry on to the next page, please.
Thank you. Oh,
Your final comment was what I was going to comment on. Vice Chair was, or Vice Deputy Mayor, sorry, was that there's always an opportunity for a group to come directly to council if there's something major where they could ask for some sort of funding.
Perfect. Carry on.
okay, so now we come to the responsibilities, and I know we've already kind of touched on this. Status quo currently, essentially the community services team reviews the applications, and we do the approvals that are within our signing authority. So our supervisor and coordinators can sign up to 2,500, manager, myself, 10,000, and then of course Mr. Wagstaff up to 50,000. So which is, you know, we're well covered that way in terms of the approved budget. And of course, council always defines the total grant program budget through our annual process with the budgets. So what we are recommending is that council continue to define that budget, that manager approval would be up to 2,000, GM approval up to 5,000, and anything, if we go there, if we want to go with over 5,000, that the CAO could do approval on that. So that would be a special circumstance. And quarterly reporting to council on the distribution is something else that we're able to do. And then option 3 makes things, you know, I guess a little more time consuming, slows the process down. Customer journey is a little bit clunkier. So that's why we're suggesting option 2. Feedback.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. You keep putting your hand out there. All right, carry on to the next one.
Okay. Okay, so the grant application schedule, I'm going to try summarize this really quick. What we're recommending is that we do 4 intake cycles. The dates that I've kind of chosen here, but they can move. January 30th, May 30th, August 30th, and October 30th. And this is sort of to coincide with like when people are starting to plan their programs, planning their summer events, that sort of thing. And then, you know, say in like October 30th is more like when the hockey teams might be established and know when their tournaments are, that sort of thing. So we think that 4 gives a nice, I guess, happy medium, because if we are doing it monthly, that there's a lot of administration that has to go into that. And, you know, but 4 intake cycles, we would also like our organizations and people that are applying to actually put some thought into it. And, you know, we'll make sure they know the deadlines and that sort of thing. But, you know, I think that if they're able to meet deadlines and such, they're also quite likely to, you know, give us a report and also execute what they're planning to do. So that's why we're recommending option 3, but open to feedback.
Does anybody have any feedback? All right, carry on.
All right. So next steps, we're going to get some community feedback from our stakeholders and just in general community. Timeline from we'll be bringing it back to committee with what we heard and our proposed policy, and then a review and revision process. It is definitely my goal to have this out by May so that we can, you know, be in time for kind of the main event cycle of the year. But you know, it is a process, and we want to be thorough, so it's going to take some time. And that is it. I've talked a lot. Thank you for your attention and your feedback.
Thank you. Does anybody have any final questions or comments? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Next, presentation by Ryan O'Sullivan, Transportation and Parks Manager, on our curbside waste schedule adjustment. Councillor Chenard.
I'm going to declare a conflict on F1 and 2 and remove myself from the room.
again, thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. I'd like to present on the curbside waste scale adjustment. Why isn't it moving forward? Okay. So, administration has met with GFL and has reported several items that is affecting the pickup times for every second Friday of the waste area A. And some of the safety issues were safety, area size, replacement of trucks when they need extra trucks, distance to the landfill, which are ultimately causing some of the late collection times we saw in August and September last year. In response, GFL has proposed options to change the current schedule. So here are some of the issues. So they now have cameras in the trucks, and this affects them having quick stops and quick starts. They've had to slow down their cycle times quite a bit, which goes back reporting to the drivers and stuff like that. The area household between Area A and Area B is quite large. Area A, the two areas are a lot bigger than the other two areas when they're done together on the Fridays. There's also a currently shortage of trucks in the area, and it takes about 1.5 to 2 years to acquire a new truck. And then obviously the distance to the Hinton landfill when they go to dump. So GFL understands the late pickups are not ideal for the town of Edson residents, nor are they ideal for them. The preference is to have all of the garbage picked up, in daylight hours. Their current contract has no provisions on collection timelines, other than they start at 7. And so they are complying with the town of Edson bylaws. So the current schedule right now is we have Area A and B, which are picked up Friday bi-weekly, and then Area D and C, which is picked up on the other Friday. The advantage is organics don't get mixed out on the waste days. And our existing waste schedule agreement was September 1st, 2023, and it runs till August 31st, 2026. So we'll be retendering then. So the new pickup, there we go. The new pickup schedule, they would run the same times as the organics. So Monday, they'd be Area A, Tuesday, Area B, Wednesday, Area C, and so forth, Area D. And then Friday would be a flex day. So if anything got missed or whatever. So here's the schedule. If you can see it, we'd probably start May 1st. And that way you would have garbage and organics kind of the 1 week. You'd have organics the next week, garbage and organics the week after, and so on and so forth. And then you get into the winter months, it'll be garbage and organics. Again, 1 week, garbage, the next week, organics, the next week, kind of offset. And then there's the areas that we're dealing with the current maps right now. So Area A is Mondays, Area B is Tuesdays, Area C is Wednesdays, Area D is Thursdays. So we'd like to collect feedback from the committee of the whole on possibly either leaving the schedule the way it is, if you feel it's working fine now and you don't have any more issues, or adjusting the waste pickup schedule as noted and changing it to A, B, C, and D. And if adjusted, we would work with staff and the town service providers on changing the schedule and our communications to bring it out to the public. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Chachka.
Thanks through the Deputy Mayor to Mr. O'Sullivan. Thanks for bringing this forward. I know last summer when we had some late collection times, it was definitely of concern to residents. So I'm not opposed to going you know, a different, on a different schedule, but I kind of wonder if we have, in the summertime, our organics bins and our garbage bins out both in front of our, you know, on our curb on the same day. Is that going to be maybe taking up so much space that people can't park? Or are there rules that have to be so far apart from each other?
There, through the deputy mayor to Councilor Chacha, there are rules already in place in our waste bylaw that have to be certain distance from cars, certain distance from curbs, certain distance from intersections and stuff like that. So they would have to be spaced. So just so the truck arms can get in and pick it up whenever they come through.
For sure,
Yeah, some of the places are tight, and we'll just have to work with fitting everything in. Maybe I have GFL here. Maybe they can answer that question if that's okay, on how we can have the truck on the waste bin and the organics bin. Is it going to be tricky to fit them all in the room? Yeah, if you don't mind. So I'd like to introduce Rob from GFL.
Hi, thank you. Sorry if I'm not proper procedure, but to answer your question, yes, there will be some restraints to that. But as we deal with that, we know that if there are specific places that there's just physically no room for 2 carts, then that's where we have special exemption for that particular resident, where our guy would get out of the truck, move the cart to an area where it's safe, dump it, put it back, and then continue on. It's very far and few between that does happen, but it can happen. And in other municipalities that do the same thing, they have special services set up for that, where people move their carts in and out. So that is in place, and we are prepared to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tachka. Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor, to council and the gallery. First of all, I'll say we've consistently had pretty excellent service from GFL since the contract began. I think it was 2018, I believe. Is that correct? And except for the short stint there in the summer, Mr. O'Sullivan spoke about, and I know that members of administration did meet with GFL and sort of got that problem sorted out. And since that time, it's been excellent. The expectation is, albeit it says in the contract 7 a.m., the expectation is that you have your bin out by 7 a.m., essentially before you go to work. And then when you get home from work, although it doesn't say this in the contract, by the time you get home from work, say 5 o'clock, 5:30, it's been picked up. Although they have until 11:59, in future contracts, I think, having an end date in the later afternoon, early evening is appropriate, right? And that's kind of the service level our residents have expected, and I think we should continue to expect. Side note, I really appreciate the graphics on the map with the little bins. That's helpful for me to figure out when the bins are coming. So that's a quick side note. I am gonna say I am just a little confused about how this might solve the issues that GFL might be having. We signed this contract in September of 23, and certainly no issues were brought forward at that time about changing any schedules and things like that. I look at, and I do get worried about that flex day. And that is, and yes, issues can happen and have happened in the past, is that say if a truck breaks down or something like that, they can communicate to us and we can get out to the general public, there will be a delay. I would be worried that if that flex day is there as a crutch all the time, that basically at the end, we didn't get to these bins, you got to remember, pull your bin back and bring it back on Friday now. Or leave it out till Friday, and that creates some issues. And I would believe, I don't want to call it a crutch, but I can't think of another word. So a crutch, that it's like, we don't have to, we won't get to those. We'll get to those, in 4 days' time or 3 days' time. And I do spin off of what Councillor Chachka said. When I think about roads like West Haven Drive, there's already barely enough room for a bin, let alone 2 bins on those days. And I can certainly see some issues there, right? I know that member for GFL did sort of address that a few of our between, but there's quite a few other roads in town that could be really tight for space. So I'm not sure how this maybe solves the issue that we're seeing. that GFL has said. So I do like the way it's sort of set up. Adding in the graphics on the little legend would be great. But those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Mayor Zahara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and anybody that was here when we were turning over to curbside knows all the challenges that we faced at that time, and it was a huge challenge, a huge communications initiative to get people used to the schedule that we are currently on. To try to change that now, I think would be extremely difficult in a short amount of time. As Councillor Taylor has alluded to, I don't know how this solves a problem if we're doing curbside and waste on the same day. So I guess I need some clarity on that. And we do have a contract that's going to be coming up for next year, I believe, for renewal. I think at that time would be a perfect opportunity if there's a desire by our contractor to change the schedule, to do that, for us to put in timelines as to when we want those waste pickups to be completed by. GFL has provided exemplary service to this community over the last number of years, with the exception of a few weeks this past summer, or last summer, I guess it was. But I'm a little challenged to make a change towards the end of a contract. It has worked up until this point. I would prefer to see us continue on the same schedule for now, and then renegotiate that as a part of our new contract moving forward if our current service provider is putting a tender in for that. Because it is going to be a huge challenge to try to re-educate and get people on the same page as to when the pickups are going to be happening. We're going to be creating a lot of confusion. That's just my 2 cents.
Anybody have anything else? I have a quick. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Bevan.
Through the chair to the presenter and GFL, I echo what the mayor is saying here, that we still have problems with some of the bins going out and what time they are, and our citizens are still getting kind of mixed up, and we change it, it's going to be even worse. And if we have to have a bin sitting there for the next 3 or 4 days, it gets knocked over, the stuff gets blown around, the birds get it all over the place, and then it has to be cleaned up. And who's going to clean it up? I don't think it's fair that our town employees have to go out there and clean it up, or because the schedule has changed, I don't think the residents should. It should be up to GFL to maybe go out there and clean it up, or however it works. I would like to see it stay the same as it is. If they have a problem with their trucks, before they used to keep an extra one on hand, and I know they used to be able to get one, say, from Whitecourt or Drayton Valley, wherever it is, and they managed to make it work all the time. And like we said, we had some problems here a little back, change of management, which I don't think they understood what we were going through here and how big of an area we had to pick up in that. And I know that we never had the problem before with the areas being too big. So I would say we leave it, and I agree with the mayor that we come here in 2026 where an RFP goes out on it. Then we look at making a change there for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Anybody else? I have a quick question, Mr. Sullivan, on the, is the primary reason, and maybe the gentleman from JFL can answer, is the primary reason for changing the schedule, he's mentioned something about the trucks, you can't get enough trucks and they don't have enough trucks to do it. Is that the primary reason for changing the schedule?
So there was two primary reasons. One is the size of area A and B together, to get them all picked up in that timeline. And then the number of trucks. They have one truck for Edson, and it's hard to get that second truck to come in.
Okay, so then how do we, unless we're taking the organics to the landfill, how do we do organics and landfill in a day with one truck?
That's what I'll refer back to Rob. Yeah.
I'm just confused how we can, unless we're just taking the organics to the landfill, and that would solve that problem, but.
Okay, so, sorry, for clarification, so we would collect, if we change this, we would collect garbage in the morning, bring it to obviously the Hinton landfill, come back, and then we collect organics. We bring the organics back to the yard. We've created a bunker where we unload the organics into, and then we immediately load it into roll-off containers. And then we take those roll-off containers when they're full, and then we take them to the Edson facility, my apologies, to the Westlock facility for disposal of organics.
Okay.
So the current process that you guys had in place was that the truck goes out and collects your organics, and then he's got to drive now to that facility in Westlock, dump it, and drive it back, which adds a considerable amount of time, the wear and tear on the trucks, and that's where we're having the issues. That drive and the wear and tear, especially in the minus 40s, 30s that we have, wreaks havoc on the trucks and they break down. It doesn't matter what type of system it is. The hydraulic systems on the trucks, when you go out in that cold, they do not work. So in that respect, that's why we have trucks. Now our truck age is aging. So in the past, yes, we had much more equipment. We did. But as the stuff continues to break down, it's costly. We don't have the means to repair, as some of the parts we can't get to repair these trucks anymore, such as heaters. I'm in that situation right now. Just can't get the parts anymore for them. So at that point, you have to basically park your truck, because you're not allowed to drive a truck without a proper heater in it. It's against the law. So you have to order new trucks, 1.5 years, 2 years away for that. It's not like I can go to the local dealership and unfortunately buy them. So that's the reason for one of the parts of the changes. And just to answer the other question is, so that time frame for picking up that stuff, because we don't have to make a second trip to a landfill and we save 3.5 hours a day, we're not out there till 9 o'clock at night. Nobody likes that.
Okay, thank you.
If that answers your question.
It does, but you made me want to ask another one. And
By all means.
so we're going to be storing organics in town in what kind of facility? And do you guys have, these are permanent? And maybe that's a question to Mr. Kitlitz. Are we allowed to store organics on site in town? Like, as far as I know, that seems weird to me, but.
We don't, we put it in roll-off containers, and it's the same thing as if it's anything that's stored in there.
So that it has
It meets
lids and stuff?
environmental, environmental, like Alberta Environment, meets all their criteria, everything like that. There's nothing that leaks into the ground. There's nothing that poses a hazard at all. So it's in our facility. It doesn't leave our facility until it's ready to roll.
Mr. Kitlitz?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. And again, I don't know specifically what's happening on site, but I can just speak to what would be in our situation. If council recalls, we did have a project to put a composting facility at our landfill. But yeah, if you're storing it on the ground, yeah, there's a bunch of regulatory stuff that has to go through. But it sounds like it's not going on the ground. It's going from a truck to a roll-off bin. So I don't know that would be it.
Yeah, like the.
But if you're storing on the ground, I think maybe there'd be some.
It does not hit the ground. No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I think my questions were answered. Did anybody else have anything else they want to add? Okay, do you have anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
I think we got direction. It seems like we're going to hold off.
Yeah, I don't know if there was clear direction. I know I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of changing it. It's a lot for, garbage is one of those things you have to have reminders on your phones, but I think I follow the mayor on this one with the, if the contract comes up in a year, if we want to change it, then we can look at it. And if that's my personal view, changing everything, it's a whole different, you have to roll everything out and you have to re-educate the public and it can become a headache. And further what Councillor Chachka said, having 2 bins out every day, there's a lot of bins out there on a regular day, I think could pose challenges itself. So I'm also a little concerned by the organics being stored in town and what the smell may be like. And then, so. Mr. Kitlitz?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, through you, Deputy Mayor, I guess I just thought of something else here that might play a factor. Based on what we're told right now with extended producer responsibility, at some point after 2026, we could be going to a curbside recycling. So that adds another piece of a bin or material that's going to be picked up on the curbside potentially, which may even also alter what the schedule looks like. So that's another complexity, I guess, that I never thought of till just now. So maybe the idea of status quo for a while isn't a bad idea, but because otherwise we could produce another change in another year and a half, right? So anyway, it's just a thought that came into my mind just now.
Thank you, Mr. Kitlitz. Mayor Zahara?
Yeah, and just to your comment, Deputy Mayor Pasichny, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're not storing it, they're just basically transferring it to a roll-off and then hauling it away. Virtually, I think, pretty much immediately afterwards, right? They're not storing.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, it goes from the truck into a bin. The bin gets picked up by another truck and takes.
Yeah,
Is that the same day, or is that like at the end of the week? Because I understood that it was after 4 days of pickup.
No, it's every second day.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm really challenged with changing a schedule, and then who knows what's going to happen with the contract from a year from now, and then all of a sudden, you know, we have the same service provider, different service provider, we have curbside recycling, then we're going to make another change, like we'll get lynched in the public or whoever's around this table. You know, this is a big change, and it took a lot for us to launch this program, and I know the headaches that we had before, so I would like to keep it status quo, try to manage through it until that contract comes up for renewal. Then I'm certainly open to it if operationally it'll make life easier for everyone. And we think this through about these having two bins out. Like I can't imagine on West Haven Drive or some of the other areas that are really tight, having that set up like that. So that's my thoughts.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, I didn't hear the one question was asked that, through the chair, sorry. Was it gonna be picked up the same day it was dumped off at their site, or was it gonna sit there for a while?
He said every other day, so they'll sit in a transferred bin for 2 days.
Okay, I guess, you know, I'm kinda okay there, but if it's not covered, we're gonna have a lot of birds and that flying around there, and we are close to our airport is just kind of right across the way too. So, you know, sits there any longer if they have a breakdown of the truck and they can't get it out. And we know what the birds are like in town when they see something nice and fresh to eat. It could be a disaster.
I don't recall, is the bin covered?
Is it a covered bin?
They are covered, yes.
The bin is covered, Councillor Bevan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will, thank you very much for that. Next up is Eric Christ. Oh, we need to get Councillor Chenard back in. Oh, I missed one. So, never mind. It's perceived conflict. Yes, sorry, Mr. Sullivan. Do you have another presentation?
So, thank you again, Deputy Mayor and Council. I'm back I'd like to present on our Spring Cleanup 2025. So this was a picture of our Spring Cleanup 2023. Just to recap, Spring Cleanup was, in 2023, was tasked to town staff. Items were left curbside and cleared for the week of May 23rd to May 30th.
My apologies, Ryan, to interrupt you
Oh, we
through
lost.
to Deputy Mayor. We have lost Councillor Bevan. We just need to recess for 5 minutes, please.
Okay, start the clock at what time did we lose them at? 9:28?
9:28.
Okay, we are on a 5-minute recess sharp. So passed. We no longer have Councillor Bevan online. He'll do his best effort to get back online, but in the interest of time, we're going to continue. We don't have any motion on the table. I'm going to get a motion right now from council if we could, a motion to allow us to go past 10 o'clock because we're going to go past 10 o'clock tonight. So we might as well get that done now. So do we need Jean back for that? Okay, then we'll wait till after. We'll make that motion afterwards. Okay. Thank you for saving me on that point of order that Kevin was going to throw at me. Yeah, he was so excited to get that one. Fair enough. I said I was going to do that and I didn't do it. Okay, so please carry on. You have very few minutes left.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As I was saying, 2023 year, town staff did the cleanup. All items were cleaned up within the week. We had control of the spring cleanup. What didn't go well, mobile home parks were included in the spring cleanup. They did leave they used it quite well. It was high operational costs for town staff, vehicles, fuel, and staff time could have been used for other operational springtime uses. 2024, GFL did the spring cleanup. Items were left on curbsides for Area A the week of May 24th and Area B May 24th to June 7th. So Area A was the 24th and everybody put it on the Friday and it was cleaned up after the week after. They took a week to clean as they went. Area B was put out on May 31st. They cleaned up until June 7th. So what went well was really reduced costs for the spring cleanups for residents. Little to no staff time. We did have to go back and clean up a few mattresses and some odds and ends that people put out after the fact. What did not go well? Well, it took 2 weeks to remove the items because they put them out Friday and then they took the whole week to pick them up. Again, streets looked unsightly during that week, the 2 weeks that they were out. And then residents did place a lot of items out after the deadlines, which town staff had to go pick up after the fact. So moving forward, we discussed with a lot of other municipalities of similar sizes on what their range of spring cleanup does. Whitecourt opens their landfill for a full week for free drop-off. They order extra bins in. They have service provider brings in extra bins for cleanups, and they have staff needed around to help clean up. Hinton utilizes internal forces, which allows define their waste collection schedule as we did in 2023. Drayton Valley opens their landfill for 2 weekends, one in the spring, one in the fall, and they record weights up to 500 kilograms of items. So there's some options we're proposing, seeking feedback on for the 2025. Option one, town staff does it again. Again, the estimated cost for this is about $57,000. We got all staff. We have tandem trucks, loaders, or backhoes all being used. Option two, GFL to provide spring cleanup. This is in our agreement, and it's $350 per home, so about $8,000, a little over $8,000. And option three is we open our landfill for free drop-off and set up a helpline for anybody with mobility issues or vehicle issues where we can go, town staff can go pick it up for them and bring it in. Again, estimated cost for that would be about $35,000 to $40,000, depending on how many calls we get to bring it in.
Mayor Zahara?
Are you done?
Nope.
Okay.
Still going. Sorry, you threw me off there. Okay, no worries. In addition to spring cleanup week, administration is seeking feedback on community cleanup day as well. So this would be proposed for the Friday before the kickoff of spring cleanup week. And we challenge business owners, institutions to send staff out to clean up in and around their business or neighborhood. Residents, town staff, a couple hours during the day to go clean up parks, areas around facilities. And then the town would supply garbage bags and we'd go pick them up after the fact. Any questions? There we go.
Mayor Zahara.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. O'Sullivan. I really liked when GFL did it. I know that, the goods were out in the front lawns and front yards for longer period of time. But it also allowed people the opportunity to recycle or reuse some of those items too, which I thought was a benefit. People went around and picked up things that they could use. Hopefully they're not thrown in the bush afterwards. So I think it's our town staff have a lot of other things they need to be doing, like pothole repair and other things. So I would like to see our contractor continue to do it. And I do like the idea of having the landfill open for a period of time as well, maybe following that, for any of those stragglers that might have missed the pickup or may have some additional items. I really like what Drayton Valley does. I've been watching them and having their free drop-off days. I do like the idea of a community-wide cleanup where businesses can challenge each other. I know Youth Council's been out there picking up garbage with some of our staff, and I think it's a really good way to clean up the community in the springtime. And we need to just continue to do that throughout the year. Try to keep our community clean. Those are my thoughts.
Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor to council or a committee in the gallery. Initially, I was actually interested in option 3, but looking, I would like to try certainly option 2 again. I know GFL did it last year, and I think with lots of communication on our end, and I think communication is the key to get that message out there, to get those things down to the curb is the key to our residents. So I'm absolutely willing to go with option 2. The price is right as well. You can't beat the price, and GFL does good work. I mentioned that earlier. They do exceptional work. With the community cleanup, I agree with Mayor Zahara. I think it's a great idea. I know the Youth Council's done it around Earth Day, but we can certainly, Earth Day's usually sometime in April, but moving it to May is important. And I saw you have it up on the slide there that town staff may be able to help. And this goes back to sort of our beautification strategy that we have in our strategic plan. And that is we have to lead by example. All right. And I don't know, me saying this of asking the town staff to get out there and do that. I would also think the council could also get out there and do that. But to lead by example that if we're asking businesses to clean up their areas, we have to lead by examples to ensure that our areas are cleaned up too. So, and I think we've talked about, cleaning the countertops, just ensuring that you don't have to clean your entire house, but just tidy things up is the important type of thing that we need to do. So I think asking our staff and even council as well, and our youth council to get out there and to help out with that would be great. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. Through the deputy mayor to the committee and administration. I am in favor of option 2. The service was well and it's cheaper, so that works out great. And also people were able to scavenge and use it as a little bit of a take it or leave it, which is really great to reuse those items in the way that they can. My next comment is regarding the community cleanup day. I think that's fabulous. I think it's a great way to increase our beautification and also in a way that doesn't cost anything. Further to just one cleanup day, I know other communities have had, like a cleanup hour, every Tuesday at 3:00, go around your business and just tidy it up quickly, right? To kind of maintain that. And something like that I think would be really great to show, beautification in our entire community and show pride without costing, an arm and a leg to do that. So that's all I had. Thanks.
I can answer some of the questions about communications coming out. So we've already set up a program with our communications on pre-doing the spring cleanups. We're getting ready to pull that out and blast it out earlier than usual goes out. So just getting it out to residents, then reminding them periodically up to spring cleanup.
Thank you, Mr. Kitlitz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to make a note that in terms of the cleanup afternoon, sort of that little blitz, we just recommended that Friday before spring cleanup. If there's a date that council thinks more appropriate, by all means. We weren't sure what day to pick, and that's sort of where we started. But if there's another day that council has some thoughts on, we'd certainly consider that as well. So,
thank you. Any other questions? I have one quick one. On option 2, it says per household. Is that per households picked up or just all households in total?
That's per household.
that we pick up from, or from every household?
So per household we pick up from. So it's a standard charge. They charge, it was an $8,000 for the town. So everybody that has a cart gets charged, whether they put something out or not.
Okay, so what about the places that don't have the toters?
So it's for everybody that the town of Edson supplies garbage facilities to. So trailer parks would not be included. They have their own waste providers. And businesses would also have their own, whether they use GFL or not.
I thought we do Spring Up? Did we not do the trailer courts last year, the year before?
We did them the year before in 2023. But again, they're not we don't provide garbage services to them. So we removed it.
Okay, was there thought to include the number of households in there to this? Mr. Kitlitz?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think when we brought the waste bylaw to council last summer, I think it was, this was clarified in terms of that bylaw. It indicates the exempt properties. So basically what the contract GL says is they have a contract for those 2,300 floating properties based on, utility accounts, and that's where the fee comes from. So we're providing this service to those folks. And maybe this comes into where Mr. Mayor brought up opening the landfill. Maybe we catch those other properties through opening the landfill for a day or two to catch them. So
That's definitely an option.
Mayor Zahara?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Exactly my point is there's going to be individuals that are away. There's going to be properties that are not a part of this program. So for them, in order to encourage them to clean up and not dispose of their materials irresponsibly, I think having a few days of a community cleanup, free dumping at the landfill, I think is helpful. And I think it's also helpful to members of our community that may not have the financial resources to maybe spend to clean up their properties, to do those dump runs. And if they know when the date is, they can arrange, hopefully, transportation to get those materials there. Maybe there's some more community organizations that will be willing to help out, or if they have mobility challenges, maybe that's something that the town can assist with. I'm not sure, but it's all about trying to get rid of that waste and trying to make sure our town is as clean and safe as possible as well. So,
thank you, Mayor Zahara. Further to that, I'm not against opening the landfill for a day too, but some people don't have the means. And is there a way, because it's not part of the contract, so maybe have a different rate, is there a way we can find out what it would cost to include those trailer courts? And the reason I say that is that our large monthly families don't have stuff all lying around their properties, but I do know that when we did offer it a few years back, it was heavily utilized. And that's part of our community, and that stuff can also blow out and look, it's just one of those things. I'm trying to make our whole community look better. So I don't know if there's an option of looking at that or not, but I just thought it wouldn't hurt to, I know it's not part of our garbage contract, but it'd be nice to know what our additional costs. Like if we're looking at doing the town as ourselves at $57,000 and then, open up the landfill for $10,000 or $15,000. Well, what if we open that landfill for a day and then we add another, whatever the dollar amount would be, that would be fair based on the contracts, to add those sections of the community? Because you can drive by and see into those places as well, and maybe they want to have that same opportunity. So, and each property owner in there, each person who owns a trailer pays their own personal property tax too. So it's not just their other person. So, anybody else? Anything else? You have anything to close with?
I think so. Nope.
You have all the information you need from us?
I do.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much for hearing.
All right, and we will get Councillor Chenard back in. Thank you, Ms. Verboom. All right, I would need a motion that council extend the meeting beyond the 3 hours as set out in the meeting procedures bylaw number 2281. Councillor Taylor.
I so move.
Thank you very much. Any debate on it? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. All right. Oh. Now we don't have to worry about it later when we get to 10 o'clock. If you want, because it is a committee. All right, we're on item F3. Is that right? Spring cleanup. Yeah. Eric Christensen, Enforcement Services Manager, and we're talking about responsible pet ownership. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor and Council. So tonight I'm here to talk about responsible pet ownership. So back in December, we brought this forward for consultation with you guys and with the committee. We also put the survey out for 1 month, and we did up a what we heard report, and we're here to present what we heard from the residents. Main concerns that we heard about from the residents was cats, which were a significant issue raised with problems with roaming, cats defecating on property, destroying gardens, and being a nuisance due to excessive noise, especially during mating season. Several suggestions include mandatory microchipping, leash requirements, and fines for owners. Dogs was another issue that was brought up, loose dogs, especially on off-leash in public areas, trails, parks, and other common issues. Residents expressed frustration with owners not picking up after their dogs, leading to dog waste being left behind on trails and yards. So what we heard was pet ownership limits. Some residents supported stricter regulations on the number of pets per household, particularly regarding cats. Others suggest pet owners should be held financially responsible for their animals with higher licensing fees and fines. Another issue that was brought forward was stronger enforcement on existing animals and control laws, particularly with cats. Oh, I'm sorry. There we are. Sorry. Most respondents advocate for stronger enforcement and more robust educational campaigns and community collaboration to ensure responsible pet ownership. Residents want stronger enforcement on existing animal control laws, particularly regarding cats, and more support for responsible pet ownership, including spay and neuter programs, better shelter resources, and more effective communication and animal control. So here you have our animal control stats from 2023 and 2024. So you can see the cats increased by 77.36%, and dogs only increased 21.39% over 2023 and 2024. Factors to include in these resources were unavailable, and most of the time was reactive response as opposed to reactive. Other factors included the numbers of residents that didn't call with enforcement services and were not able to respond to the issues. So with animal registration, what we heard was 41.76% of the respondents support keeping the existing licensing system, where 45.21% would like to see more, require identification of animals off property, eliminate license, and then there was eliminating licensing of 13.03% in favor of removing all requirements. Many respondents prefer replacing licensing with a regulation requiring identification for animals, while a smaller group of supports maintaining or eliminating requirements entirely. So with animal licensing, this is a 5-year comparison. The number of licenses invoiced does not reflect the amount that has been paid and are outstanding. These are only what have been invoiced. This year, 2025, we've invoiced for 640 licenses. So the financial implications, if lifetime licenses were introduced, this would significantly go down in our revenue coming in. So, with our options, we currently have 3 options in front of you. The first option is our current practice. Our second option is what we're recommending, which is the lifetime fees. And then there is a third option of no licensing fee. Option 1 is our current practice requires animal owners to come in every year to purchase licenses. This is time consuming for residents to complete every year, as well as it requires extensive contribution from staff to receive payments, send out invoices. If the owners don't pay the animal license, staff do not send out reminders. In the past, peace officers have, in the third quarter, contacted animal owners about their outstanding animal licenses. Option 2 is a lifetime licensing would be offered with an option still to do annual licensing for short-term residents. This eases the burden on animal owners by only having to register animals once in the lifetime. This option reduces the amount of staff time. The initial year of the change would require some financial work for residents who have paid the current year fees to convert to a lifetime. The average fees in other municipalities was anywhere from $100 to $160 for lifetime of the animal. The enforcement staff would spend equivalent time dealing with the animals as we do now. Option 3 removes all financial burden of paying licenses for animals. It removes all staff time regarding collecting and issuing licenses, and the onus is put on the animal owner, but enforcement would still have the issues that we have today. So with that, I would open that up for any discussion on which option.
Councillor Chenard.
Through the chair to, oh my God, I can't remember your name.
Eric.
Eric, sorry. Option 1 I like. The problem I see with option 2, I buy a lifetime. Some dogs live longer than others. So are we going to run into a scenario, I bought my lifetime license and my dog got run over by a car, do I get a refund? You know, I mean, that's where it is. So I would stick to option 1. Option 2, lifetime, I wouldn't be in favor of, so I like option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard. Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor to the committee and to anyone in the gallery, I like option 2, so long as we have again communication going out, because usually with option 1, the current practice is at the beginning of it's usually the beginning of the year or end of the year, we begin putting out that communication, renew your license. Now it's, you know, you got to remember do it when you get a pet, and whether or not that's communicated via pet stores or if people get them through ears and things like that we communicated, hey, if you get a new pet, ensure that you whether it's the thing you get along with it, get your license as well. And I just look at with option 1, the amount of staff time it's taking with the amount of revenue we're getting. It's not a conducive use of our staff time. So I appreciate option 2.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Mayor Zahara.
I also like option 2. I think that we were wasting a lot of staff resources every year, and it's also a big pain for those of us that have pets to have to do this every year. Lifetime option is easy. You get your lifetime license, and unfortunately, if something happens to your pet 2 weeks later, that's the way she goes. No different than if you have an annual license fee. There are things that happen in life that are unfair, but that's life. So I want to streamline this. I want to make it as easy as possible. And then if you're only here for 6 months or a year and you only want that annual license, then that makes sense as well. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor Zahara. Councillor Chashka.
Through the chair to committee and administration, I agree with what the mayor said. He took all my stuff.
Councillor Moore.
He doesn't know when talking.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think 2 makes more sense because, it does relieve the staff of, extra time and such. And, a lot of dogs I know of have lived a long time, so. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'm for option 2 as well. All right, carry on.
Thank you. All right, cat registration. Survey results in the cat licensing show a significant majority of respondents support regulating cat licenses. 67.18%, which was 174 responses, were in favor of expanding pet registration to include cats. Meanwhile, 32.82% oppose the idea of cat licensing. So within that, most respondents were in favor of introducing cat licensing, although a smaller portion is against it. So with that one, this is a yes or no. Do we stay where we are without registering them, or do we, which is our current practice, or do we regulate them like dogs?
Councillor Chenard?
Well, through the chair, your second comment, I'm going, yes, we do the same, but I'm also agreeing to regulate them like dogs because I do own cats. How I mean regulate them, so if it's a cat, if it goes outside, same as a dog, it must be in a fence, and yes, there is cat fences or on a leash. Too many people go, oh my God, I own a cat. They've only see it twice a year. So if you're gonna own a cat, then own it. Keep it in your house. You know, there is cat fences, but how can I say, oh yeah, I own a cat and I put a tag on it, but I haven't seen it in 6 months. So that is not a responsible pet owner. So if you're gonna get a license on your cat, who's gonna catch that cat to see if it's tagged or not? So that's the problem. So I want cats to be handled like dogs and mean it. They are contained. They can't run free. So putting license on, it doesn't do us any good. There's no way to enforce it.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard. Councillor Taylor?
Through the mayor to administration, I guess I pose this question, Mr. Christensen. Obviously, like it looks like a majority of respondents want cat licensing, but then we have to look at maybe other municipalities that do have cat licensing, and what challenges do they have with the implementation and enforcement of it, right? And that is like, it's so easy to say, yeah, we're going to do cat licensing. But if it becomes the biggest headache and battle for our staff to do this and to enforce, then we're really making more work for ourselves than to try to just educate people and to try to find other ways to deal with some of the cat issues that we're seeing in town. So I'll pose that question and we'll see what you got.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Taylor, through the chair. I've worked in municipalities that, yeah, it is a challenge for sure, because people that say, oh, my cat's always in house, I don't need to license them, I never let them out. The other issue is the cats, the feral cats, we don't know who they belong to. It's a matter of catching them and trapping them and working through it. It is a challenge for sure. It is a lot of work. It's no different than a dog, though. If someone doesn't register the dog, we don't know until we come into an encounter with that animal. So.
Oh. Councillor Chechka.
Through the chair to the committee and Mr. Christensen, so this is something that comes up when you go door-to-door campaigning, is the cats. People are not happy about cats going on their property and urinating and going in their gardens and their flower beds, and it's gross. So I don't blame them for being upset by that. And I think with the heavy response that we've had from that, and this is something that comes up quite regularly, I think it is worth it to try to go this route and treat them the same way as we do dogs, and try to, I guess, deal with those feral cats, right? So I think that's the only way that we can do that.
Thank you, Councillor Chechka. Mayor Zahara.
They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. I don't know, Donald Trump said it, so. This is a big problem, and, I think licensing may be one aspect of it, but I really do think we need to, and I'm sure it's coming up in the presentation, a spay and neuter program. The status quo is not acceptable. You see cats roaming around the neighborhoods at nighttime more than you see some of the people. I have the pleasure of being out on the streets at 2 a.m. looking for criminals, and we see a lot of cats roaming around the neighborhoods. So I do think we need to do something. The survey indicates that we need to do something. I don't know if licensing is going to solve anything, but I do think we do need to look at a spay and neuter program.
Thank you, Mayor Zahara. I think it's a bit of a tool. If you add cats to the licensing now, they apply to your fine systems and everything else like that. So it's another tool in the chest. And the respondents in the survey were overwhelming to say that that's probably the strongest part of the whole survey that I read. So I'm okay with it. I'm a dog owner. Anybody else have anything else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor to administration, if we do proceed with a cat licensing, I would like to see sort of a grace period to begin, to say that anybody who currently has cats, maybe there's a grace period of saying it's free for the first 2 months to encourage people to come in and do it. As soon as you attach a fee to it, that's when people say like, well, and you've heard it, my cat doesn't go outside, so I won't go do this, right? So maybe adding that as a way to get out people and just get people to encourage them to do that, to start, so we have that registered, and then go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Chenard.
Through the deputy mayor there. So I lost the other one, so is this gonna be a lifetime license for a cat, is my first question. My second question is, when you show up and they go, is that your great cat? Oh no, it's not mine, because it eats at the neighbors, so how are you gonna prove to the person that he's not gonna admit to his cat and give me a fine? He's gonna not admit it, so chasing cats, yes, we put a cat bylaw in. We want to change dogs to do less work, and we just created more work. So I agree we have to do something. So maybe we trap the cats. If they don't belong to anybody, you advertise the fact, if you put a license on your cat and we trap it, then we at least know who to return it to. Because I've had cats, and my wife made the mistake of feeding feral cats, and pretty soon I got 50 cats on my deck. Mine are inside, so that's part of the problem, is who's gonna own up to owning that cat running around.
So Councillor Chenard has a bunch of feral cats. Let's take note. Mayor Zahara.
And he doesn't really need a license because I believe his cats were all hairless cats, so. I do like Councillor Taylor's idea of maybe a grace period of a few months in order to encourage people to take advantage of a program like this. And that would get, I guess, the base level of cats in our community hopefully registered. And then moving forward, they could get those lifetime licenses if there are new cats. And I think that if we need to deputize Councillor Chenard to do some cat patrols, I think he has lots of time on his hands, so he can do that.
I thought that was gonna be a COP project.
Thanks. Any other comments? All right, continue on, please.
All right. So the next thing we were going to talk about was animal limits and what we heard. So many of the respondents support setting separate limits of dogs and cats with a maximum total number of animals per dwelling, while 18% advocated to remove animal limits altogether. So many of the respondents, approximately 39%, preferred a limit of 2 animals, followed by 36.5% supporting a limit of 3 animals, and a smaller percentage advocating for 4 or 5 animals of about 11%. So with that, we are suggesting option 3, which was a maximum of 3 dogs or 3 cats with a total number of 4 animals per dwelling. Option 1 is our current practice, which is 3 dogs or 3 cats. Option 2 was no restrictions. So none of these options interfere with any commercial animal kennels or veterinary operations. Yeah, that's what I have for that.
Mayor Zahara.
I do like option 3. It adds some flexibility because some people don't have any cats, but they may have 3 dogs, or vice versa. I just a question to you, Mr. Christensen. We know there's a lot of animals that are needing rescue, that are surrendered. So say if an individual already has 4 animals and they take a rescue in for a few weeks or a month, would there be any provisions to allow that? Because, we do have some really responsible people in our community that have pets of their own, but, a circumstance may arise where they find an animal and they take that animal in until a foster can be found. Would there be some flexibility within the bylaw to allow for that?
Thank you for the question through the chair to Mayor Zahara. Someone actually phoned me with that exact question, so I had that on my radar and actually was reaching out to my colleagues to see how other municipalities dealt with that. We can absolutely look at an option for rescue or fostering of animals.
Councillor Schnart.
Just a comment and then I'll agree. I like option 3, except, you guys do math like I do. 3 or 3 equals 4. So, but what I do like about, well, that's what it says up there, total is 4. But what I do like about restricting a number, they are complaint driven. So like the mayor said, I own 3 and I'm being nice to ears, whoever, and I brought in 4 for temporary period. So as long as there's not a complaint, but the problem is someone owns 3 dogs and is constantly barking and maybe they have 4 dogs. So I like option 3. It gives you something to work with. Some people could have 7 cats in the house and you never know the difference. They're not complaint driven. So option 3 is for me. It gives you a tool to work with in case there's a complaint.
Thank you, Councillor Schnard, but it's, you could have 3 dogs and 1 cat to total 4, but not 4 dogs.
But it says maximum 3 or 3.
Or 3 cats and 1 dog to equal 4.
Or 18 gerbils.
With a total of all 4
Total of
animals.
4 animals.
It's. Carry on, please.
All right. So other non-domesticated animals, so what we heard, survey showed that 49.24% of the respondents support maintaining current prohibition of chickens unless approved by council, while 50.76 supported backyard hens. The survey results indicate that 31% of the respondents supporting permits for certain non-domesticated animals under strict regulations, while 68.97 prefer leaving the current restrictions in place, not allowing turkeys, geese, fowl, chickens, or other non-domesticated animals. Many respondents oppose having any farm animals in town, citing concerns of attracting predators, managing pets, and enforcing regulations, with some suggestions that people interested in such animals should move to the county instead of being in town. Those are the words directly out of the... So, with that, we have 2 options, which is the current practice of not allowing chickens in town unless approved by council, or option 2, allow backyard hens.
Mayor Zahara.
Thank you. This is probably one issue that I've had a lot of interaction with the public on, both for and against, and sometimes that was with people within the same household. So made things very interesting. Chickens, fowl, I've come to the conclusion that those belong outside of town limits unless you live in a rural area of town in which you have the property to support such kind of animals, such as on the western edges of our community, but in the I guess the metro area or the more urban area of town, I don't think they should be allowed. That's just my thoughts after much discussion with residents.
All right, Councillor Taylor's up next.
Through the deputy mayor to committee and administration, I've said this before, I'll say it again, chickens and fowl, they are not pets, and this is a responsible pet bylaw, period. Okay? Dogs and cats are pets, chickens are not. Yes, it was a slight majority that wanted chickens in town, but that's not overwhelming. It's not an overwhelming majority. I agree with Mayor Zahara. If there are some major, larger properties that could sustain and not have the chickens be problematic in town, but still, there would certainly still need to be a limit on it. But certainly wouldn't want chickens in the urban areas. We spent quite a bit of time talking about feral cats and things like that running around our neighborhoods. I don't want to add chickens to the mix, or geese, or whatever other weird fowl that you might come up with. So there you go.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Schnard.
Through Deputy Mayor to Eric, what's the difference between a backyard hen and a chicken?
Wording.
Wording? Okay, because I agree with the mayor's comment. We don't want chickens in certain neighborhoods, but if you get out to, let's say, Glenwood and some of the rural areas, so I like the idea that somebody could apply to council, because some people with the new composting and stuff, they feed their chickens. So I don't want to be erased, but if you need to apply to council, so we can go and look and say, no, you have a little tiny backyard, and like, let's say Councillor Moore, where his area of town, it wouldn't do that, but up on Grand Prairie Trail, Glenwood, maybe they weren't bothering anyone. So I don't want to chase them away, but they have to ask special permission to own them.
Just one comment on that, that when you are having chickens or backyard hens, there is provincial legislation that has to be adhered to as well when you're having backyard chickens. So just something to think about.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Councillor Chachka.
Through the chair to the committee, I agree with option 1 for the reasons already mentioned.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me either way. It's just as long as whatever the outcome is that the people who have the large acreages or farms in town, they can have chickens. I think that was already mentioned, so. All right, move on.
Next one is regulation of other animals. So, oops, I have myself here. So this is talking about other animals such as goats, pigs, horses, non-domesticated animals, exotic pets, wild animals, not typically kept in households. We have 3 options here. Option 1 is current practice of not allowing these type of animals. Option 2 is restrict livestock and prohibited animals, or option 3, which is allow some livestock and prohibited animals. Those are the 2 options that we would like to talk about tonight. It's option 1 and option 2.
Mayor Zahara.
Once again, if you want farm animals, you should go purchase a farm outside our jurisdiction.
Councillor Chenard.
I'm waving towards option 3 with a clause. So an example, if someone has a rural property and they're saying, okay, for fire control, I have a lots of grass. So no, we're not encouraging farming, but someone might say, you know what, I'm going to bring in some animals for a temporary time under control to eat all the grass and cut down and in large areas. I mean, I'm going to pick on Councilmore again. No, you can't bring a goat there, but a larger property may be suitable. You're not farming, but you're bringing in animals for fire control. They get rid of grass and stuff. So kind of in between, is there 2.5 would be where I'd be looking at? Is where I'm looking, and that's the reasoning behind it. I agree with the mayor. You want to raise animals, go to the county, but on the same token, you may want to have some of the business areas in town that may want to bring in animals to graze down the grass for fire control.
Yeah, so let's stay on topic, everybody. It's 10:15. So, Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor, like before, this is a responsible pet ownership bylaw. Livestock are not pets. There's lots of areas in the county you can do that. If you have grass problems, buy a lawnmower. There it is.
I'll buy it, you come run it.
Do you have enough direction?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, so beyond the bylaw, what we heard, enforcement and bylaws, many respondents feel that the town's animal control bylaws are not effectively enforced. Several residents call for more presence of bylaw officers, particularly on weekends, and stronger penalties for irresponsible pet ownership. They also suggest that repeat offenders should face larger fines. And the other thing we heard was animal control and shelter. There's a desire for more resources such as additional traps for stray cats and a local humane society or shelter to handle animals more effectively. Some residents also advocate for a no-kill policy at the town's pound and better management of stray and unwanted animals. And what I'll just reiterate on the no-kill policy, we do not euthanize unless the animal is sick or injured or is unadoptable, and that is determined by a licensed veterinarian, not just by a bylaw officer or the pound keeper. So.
Thank you.
The next one is the neuter and spay program. What we heard is the survey indicated that 40% of the respondents are very supportive of providing a spay and neutering program, while 24% were moderately supportive, 23 were not supportive, and 11 were undecided. Rates vary from about $140 to $319 per cat, depending on whether it is spayed or neutered, and exams, vaccines, pain medications. This rate has not been negotiated. It was just for information only at this time. The trap, neuter, release program only deals with cats' reproduction. Once they are released, it does not solve the cats at large in the community. So with that, sorry, I got ahead of myself here. We have two options on the trap and neuter program. One is yes, which is a financial cost to the town for the program, enforcement officer time, where option two is no, which is no financial burden on the program. We still have to spend time retrieving the cats, which gives us more pound services. Feral cats continue reproducing, causing increased population, as well as increased cats running at large.
Mayor Zahara?
Thank you. So I'm in favor of a neuter program. I'm also very conscious of the fact, why should taxpayers as a whole be paying for other people's animals and getting them spayed and neutered? I guess, is there a way that we can design the program in which we reward those that are getting their animals spayed and neutered, with maybe there is no fee for them to license, and those that don't have their cats spayed or neutered, or their animals spayed or neutered, they pay more? I don't know. I also, I've had comments made to me, we need to build a bigger pound. Well, we can keep building and building larger and larger. That's not the responsibility of the municipality. And I am 100% of killing animals, but unfortunately, we only have so much space, and there's some animals that are severely sick that we can't keep. So I do know there's been, over the years, changes in staff and different interpretations of the current bylaw. I do think the wording in there needs to change. We have to have more than 72 hours to allow for people to pick up their animals to make that determination. But I am in favor of a spay or neuter program. But how do we do that in a way that taxpayers are not paying for irresponsible pet owners at the same time? That's a hard one to answer.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor?
Through the deputy mayor to committee administration, the biggest challenge for me is the cost. Is that, it is expensive to do this. And we get down, and I don't know how many we could be looking at when the time comes, if we have but I agree, if there was some other way to pay for it other than the taxpayer, I don't know whether it's increased fines or, I really struggle with this. Yes, spay and neuter program sounds all great, but man, that is an incredible cost to pay per animal, and just because someone was irresponsible, then everybody else picks up the tab on that. So I lack the creativity right now to come up with a solution in order to find a way to pay for it. So if anyone knows, that would be great. Because the spay and neuter program sounds good, but the cost does not.
Councillor Chachka?
Thanks. Through the deputy mayor to the committee and Mr. Christensen. I also share the same comments as Mayor Zahara and Councillor Taylor about the costs of spay and neuter program, although I do think that something maybe is necessary. And I'm not sure if this is something where we can meet residents halfway with it. I don't know. I'm not sure what that might look like. But if there's some creativity with it to keep the cost down or increase the fines, there has been some suggestions about increasing those fines and making them a little heavier than they are, then maybe that's a way to recoup some of those costs. And then also kind of slowly reduce that feral population as time goes by.
Thanks, Councillor Chachka. Councillor Chenard?
It's late, so I have to agree with Councillor Taylor fully. He took the words right out of my mouth. I agree with the program.
Agree.
I'm agreeing. Who's paying for it?
Thank you. All right. I'm just going to remind all of council, it is 10:30. We have a huge agenda, so let's try and keep our comments short. You got enough information from everybody else. We can continue on.
Yep. So the goals of the responsible pet ownership bylaw is to streamline licensing regulations, maximum number of pets allowed per residence, restraint regulations, establish clear definitions, outline complaint mechanisms along with clear penalties. So our next steps is to incorporate the committee feedback from tonight, return to a future committee of the whole with a draft bylaw. And at the time that it's approved, we can roll out the bylaw along with education regarding the bylaw. And with that, questions?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? None? Great. All right. No, he doesn't move. So now we're gonna go into municipal policing committee.
I keep forgetting to click and talk. Ready? All right, so I'm also here tonight to present the Municipal Policing Committee for information. So the provincial government passed Bill C6 of the Police Amendment Act, known as the PAA, in December of 2022. This is intended to increase police transparency and enhance public trust. In addition to other reforms, the legislation requires the formation of a civilian governance body for all municipalities in Alberta, so that the communities can participate in setting policing priorities and performance goals. Municipalities are mandated to participate in either regional or creating their own municipal policing committee. Okay, it disappeared. Stop sharing. The PAA establishes several new mandated structures for municipal input into policing, and the Government of Alberta recently released 2 supporting regulations to clarify the powers, duties, functions, and composition of the new governance bodies. Every community in Alberta served by RCMP will be required to be represented by one of the following types of governance bodies, depending on the size and type of police service agreement they have. Municipal policing committees are for populations over 15,000. Regional policing committees consist of 4 regions, east, west, south, north, which are between the population of 5,000 to 15,000. And then there's a provincial police advisory board, which are municipalities under 5,000 and counties. These are the 4 regions here. So as you can see, Edson is in the West District, which includes Drayton Valley, Edson, Hinton, Peace River, and Whitecourt. So we are presenting 3 options tonight for your consideration to give us direction on. Option 1 is a regional policing committee. By default, this is what we belong to and would be included in if we just choose this direction. Option 2 is creating our own municipal committee. Option 3 is a second option is called a joint municipal policing committee, which would be with someone like Hinton or Whitecourt. We could have 2 municipalities doing one. With option 1, we are required to have at least 1 representative appointed to the board, which can be a council member, employee, or a member of the public. You can also, by bylaw, have more than 1 person as part of the regional policing committee.
What's the, sorry to interrupt you, option, can you back it up a slide?
Right click. This, it's not showing up.
Because there was just Whitecourt, Hinton, Drayton Valley,
Drayton Valley, Edson, Hinton, Peace River, and White Court.
How does Peace River tie in with us?
Because it's one region, it's just, if you look at the map, once we get the map back up, you'll see it. Yes. So these are the districts here. So the green district is the district that we're in.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, most of that makes sense to me. Most of that makes sense to me, except for the Peace River part doesn't make any sense. But that's not really regional. Drayton's regional, Hinton's regional, White Court's regional, but that's really strange. So sorry, I just I thought I saw Peace River, and I needed to confirm that. So.
I was surprised when I first was looking at this as well. So, okay, this is not working anymore. There we go. So back to our options. Option one is the option we're recommending, only because it's less money to run it. We will be working with the other municipalities. We would all have to create our own bylaw. It would be the same for everybody that was part of the regional. At this point, other municipalities that are in our region are in council either tonight or tomorrow night that are making the same decision to be either regional or create their own municipal. The minister can appoint a member to the, in addition to the municipal members. So one provincial appointee for every 3 municipal appointees. The cost is shared amongst the members of the municipalities. By nature, regional communities offer potential opportunity to share costs. An estimated cost of approximately $5,000 to set it up, but yet is to be determined by the province. Unfortunately, the province has downloaded all of this onto the municipalities to create these regional police authorities and committees. With the us creating our own municipal policing committee, we would have not less than 3 members and not more than 7 members appointed to the municipality. With the municipal policing committee, it would be more revolving around what's local opposed to what's regional. And option 3 would be the joint municipal committee, which is with adjoining municipalities. So our next steps.
A quick question before you go on. Does this include counties or no?
So counties are under the provincial committee, so they aren't part of that. So they're under the 5,000 or in the counties. Their contract is different as a provincial contract opposed to a municipal contract.
Thanks.
So our next step, municipalities are responsible for the cost of establishing, administering, and sustaining police committees. Option of utilizing a portion of their annual police support grant and taxation for governance and local police oversight. We must pass a resolution to notify the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services of our intent to form our own municipal policing committee, if that's the option we choose. And we would have to create that through bylaw. So with that, our next step would be a consensus of council in whether we want to participate in a regional committee, create our own municipal policing committee. Those are our 2 options. So with that, any questions and looking for some.
Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor to committee and administration, I am very confused as to why we need this, why the province dictates that we need something like this. And of course, then we are dictated to pay for it. So in the aims of that, option 1 seems to be the best option. It keeps the cost lower. We'll still meet the mandates of the province. And despite the fact they say there's concerns around transparency and things like that, in our community, we've never had issues like that. So we've had a great partnership with our RCMP, Staff Sergeant Lyle here, and I don't see that changing at any time. So option 1 is for me.
Councillor Chachka.
Through the chair to the committee and administration. Yeah, this is extremely frustrating. as Councillor Taylor mentioned, we haven't, I don't know, I haven't heard of anybody complaining that we don't have, that the public hasn't had access to consult with our police regarding our policing priorities and the direction that we're heading. And we have a lot of transparency about that. They can attend the town halls, they can talk to council. It also comes back to council. So we do have quite a bit of oversight there. I don't think that we fall into this group of those communities that are having extreme challenges with this. But at the same time, I can't agree with option one. I don't think having a regional committee where, you know, potentially somebody that has been chosen in Peace River to start deciding Edson's priorities and strategies about what should be taking place in our community, I think that is completely crazy. My preference would be to have a municipal committee. If this is something that council can be on, then why not have it be composed of council and continue the way we're going, and still have opportunities for the public to access town halls and have their input with their policing priorities. And they can also contact council. Our emails, where our contact information is on the website, and then we still have feedback that way. And to me, that seems like the best thing for our community, so we have the say about what is happening in our community.
Thanks, Councillor Chachka. Councillor Chenard?
Do you guys need an answer tonight? Because I'm torn between one, and I hear what you say. I like one, you're recommending it, but 3 might not be a bad option. So I would say, before I give finance, I'd like more time. So to answer, sorry,
Go ahead.
To answer your question through the chair to, sorry, Councillor Chenard, that's a brain fart there. So this has to be in place by March 1st. But we have to show at least that we are attempting to get one direction or another, but doesn't say that we have to. They're giving us a deadline of that, but they're saying that as long as we're looking at giving them a direction, then we can go forward from there.
Okay, I have 2 staff members who've let CAO Beverage speak.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, yes, there is the March 1st. There's many communities that are not going to meet that timeline. It's best to make the right decision versus make a rush decision, is my recommendation.
Thank you, CEO Beveridge. And Mr. Wagstaff, do you need to get in there before the mayor, or?
All right, he's wearing a tie. I will certainly defer to the mayor and CAO both times.
Okay, Mayor Zahara.
More smoke and mirrors when it comes to policing in this province. We're creating another level of bureaucracy that's not needed, as we're seeing in the city of Edmonton. The province comes in and does whatever the hell they want anyway, so I'm not sure what we're doing here. What are we doing? I do share the same concerns as Councillor Chachka and other community dictating or involved in what's happening in our community. Policing is one of those things. Every community has their own challenges. We did have a protective services committee in this community for many, many years. It worked very, very well. And so that would be my preference as well. But I also cognizant of the fact that we have limited resources. And I look around this table, we have very busy schedules. I don't know how much more council can take on in terms of committee work with all the challenges that we face. And, Councillor Pisicini's frustration that I seen there is, we're a detachment. We have this municipal policing committee look after Edson, but our detachment looks after a much larger area. But Yellow County's not involved in that because they don't have to, because they're different, because they're under a provincial contract. It's insane. That's my rant, and I really would like to go to bed soon.
GM Wagstaff?
Do I need to press? No? All right. Through the deputy mayor to all of council, just a couple of pieces to consider as we move forward. The decision's not tonight, but one of the things of why we're recommending a regional policing committee over a local had to do with the support requirements. When you're supporting one member that goes to a regional versus supporting members of 3 to 7 committee, much different internal resources. When we are, as the town of Edson and our enforcement services, already looking at a number of things that have been essentially downloaded. when we're talking about AT, that tool, now looking at having to do patrols, having admin support and other supports and our financial supports to go through that when we're already stretched. That was what led us to looking at the regional. The other part to that is the priorities. This is advice to council. The priorities still come under our contract from the council to the RCMP. So there is still that. It does work. It has worked. There hasn't been any local complaints that would lead us to this. This is being driven by the province, indicating that they have an agenda that they want to ensure that communities, municipalities adhere to. So that was our piece of looking at being able to support one member in a regional one, then having to support 3, 5, or 7 in a full-fledged committee.
Thank you, GM Wagstaff. I don't get it. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'm gonna do my rant just like the mayor. Well, no, that makes no sense at Peace River. Like the rest of it, I say perfect. It's our region, but now we have a community that's not even related to us. Like people don't drive to Edson and Whitecourt from Peace River to do a crime, but they might drive from Edson to Whitecourt or whatever the case may be. I'm a little bit more with Councillor Chachkin and Mayor Zahara, because if we're gonna have it, we might as well have our own. I don't like the cost. I don't like the idea of the staff. I don't like to have put 7 people on it. But again, this just shows they come up with an idea because they want to try and control the cities or something, and they didn't even include the counties. Like to me, a regional would be us and the county. Like our police go into the county. That makes sense to me. They should be at a table with us, and they're not. So this is absolutely not worth the paper it's written on, and I don't understand the merit behind it. So I don't know if we're gonna do it. Like I don't know if we can do a really, really inexpensive meet once a year to hit the requirements kind of thing. So I don't know. That's my rant, and I see I lit up the queue. So Mayor's.
Just related to this, I do have a meeting with the Minister of Public Safety here in a few weeks. So while this is not the topic we're talking about, I will certainly endeavor to share our frustration with the minister.
Councillor Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor to administration, obviously not making a decision tonight, but we formulate a bylaw to make whatever decision we want. Like we've heard different comments from different members of council. If we do end up going one way, is it difficult or hard to switch? There's an indication that it is difficult and hard to switch.
Nope.
Oh, there's not. Okay. I'm tired and I can't read now.
Fair.
All right. Go ahead.
To answer that through the chair to Councillor Taylor. So that question's been asked. I've been in numerous meetings with the director of police governance over the last couple of weeks, and as well, I have a joint committee with everybody that's in our region to see what they're doing. So you can go regional, and if you decide to create your own, you can opt out of the regional and create your own after, and vice versa. You can create your own municipal and then go back into that. If the council chooses to go with the municipal, we just have to opt out, and there's a process that we have to contact the minister and opt out of the regional. But by default, we automatically fall into the regional.
So if we do nothing, we're just automatically plugged in there? But we still have to have a bylaw to say we're going into it?
Yeah, so we would be automatically by default in the region, and then we would have to create and choose our person that we want to be in that committee. Detachment commanders are automatically part of that group. They are non-voting, but they're there for support and information, as well as any community peace officer that could be part of it as well for enforcement.
Fun drive up the Peace River for meetings, right?
So most of those meetings would probably be done via Zoom if it was part of a regional.
Okay, anything further on this? Okay.
Sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor, if I could just add just one note on the exemption process to move to a municipal rather than the regional. They are very behind on request responses, so it would delay our process 30 to 60 days at this time.
Okay. Yeah, okay, no problem. All right, anything else? We still have lots of agenda left, so. No, the chair's gonna get shorter with you. You talk too much. Oh, sorry, Mayor Zahara.
Mr. Chair, could I suggest maybe that we defer item 5 to a future committee whole meeting? Unless administration needs this done tonight.
Mr. Mayor, this item has been moved on our council agenda placeholder for quite some time. It's fine. There's no timeline that we're going to not meet at this point in time. So if council wishes to do that, that would be welcomed.
You can't leave.
All right. So, do we have to vote? Amanda, do we have to vote on that to remove an item off the agenda that was approved?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor, we would need to have a motion to defer the final 2 items on the agenda.
Okay, so the motion will actually be to defer item 5 to a future agenda, but we're gonna remain with 6.
Thank you. I'll pull that right now.
Just 5, we're just moving 5, yes.
Business items.
Oh, sorry, F5, sorry. All right, okay, there's the motion on the table. Councillor Schnard,
I'll make the motion that council defers item F5 to future agenda.
thank you. Committee of the whole was the motion, was it not?
We haven't voted on that yet.
Committee of the whole, nobody's voted. Okay, do you want us to read, can we get it back up real quick so we know what we're voting on?
Sure.
I just want to make sure it's typed right. Everybody's tired.
Council defer to a future agenda.
Community of the whole agenda. Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. All right, now we move on to the YC Multiplex Facility update.
Jen, what I have here is not coming up on the screen.
Well, I don't know how you're not sleeping in the back. Did Brian go home?
Honestly, you'd be missing this in 10 minutes.
I had a bag of popcorn and I go bring it up there.
The update that we have tonight has to do with the development permit and the layout. They're related. The construction footprint of the pool and gymnasium have been relocated 3 meters to the east, creating extra space between the existing building and the new pool. There was more in-depth geotechnical and engineering work completed just to assess further any risk of vibrations and that concern. It was assessed that that should not materialize, especially with the footprint being moved 3 meters to the east. Foundation piles, the foundation will be piles, which it keeps the construction scheduled tight, as well as realizing $125,000 in savings from the value engineering exercises that were completed through the fall, or that were identified in the fall. Stemming from that move of 3 meters, the development permit application was submitted, it was submitted on December 23rd, but stemming from the change in moving that 3 meters, a revised application was submitted January 21st, reflecting the adjusted footprint. That, because of the Christmas break, it doesn't change the schedule that we were on with regards to processing the development permit. Again, as was reported last time in council, procurement and tendering is proceeding. This is the schedule that we're looking forward to. They are phasing in the tendering processes as they move through, and this is the schedule that is in place. Contract has already been awarded for the supply and pre-engineered arena, which was before council previously, and a pre-construction support for the mechanical and electrical subcontractors has been awarded as well. Design details continue to evolve. Over the next 6 months, efforts will focus on completing all the major tenders to allow the best opportunity to align construction pricing with the project's budget and achieve the best possible cost certainty as design work is finalized. This is a proactive strategy to position the project well for success in the construction progress well into the winter season for 25 and 26. Preparations are already underway for the start of construction this spring. Just reviewing the budget again, this is in April 2024. Town Council did approve the program design of the YC multiplex with a total budget of $80,240,000, and the Town of Edson 2025 capital budget allocated $27 million towards the project. While the project's budget currently exceeds the initial target, further cost saving opportunities may arise during construction drawings and the tendering phases that we are going through currently, allowing for refinements to potential adjustments to meet the budget goal. And options will be proposed to maintain the project budget if the requested cost savings opportunities do not materialize. As the construction of this project progresses, administration will continue to work with the consultants and contractors to ensure the public is aware of the project status and any potential impacts it has on this, on the final construction and the area during construction. Just want to remind everyone that there is the website to look at, ycmultiplex.ca. The updates will be there on the progress with the construction, and I will very quickly fly through photos of the, because these are all on the website that the people, public can see. This is a concept design now on more detailed design beyond the concept. It's starting to look on the outside as you look towards the southeast. This would be the main entrance lobby pool on the left-hand side and the new arena on the right-hand side. The lobby itself. Okay, now that I was in my mind telling the others how come it wouldn't move forward, now I know why. This is a new rendering that hasn't been released yet that will be placed onto the website. Just giving an idea of the new pool. If you were on top, this would be from a view at the top of the water slide. This is a view, colors are still being in the works, being finalized, but this is a view of what the locker room in the aquatic center would look like with private individual change rooms involved in the locker room itself. This is one of the accessible units. There are a few of those that are larger, so you can go in. They're wheelchair accessible, both for the shower and the change area and toilet as well. Again, just another view of the locker room. And this shows some views on the left are showing entrance into the private change rooms, and on the right, some of the washroom facilities in the main lobby. Again, we've seen the gymnasium a number of times, but these are on the website. Curling rink, new arena, and that is the update.
Thank you. Any questions? Fantastic. All right, we have no closed session, and I call this meeting adjourned.